Chapter 2976. This planet was the nine-extinction Heavenly King Mansion. Therefore, there were no cities on this planet. In the vast territory, all kinds of buildings could be built wherever one wanted to cultivate. Lu Ming and the rest flew high in the sky. They looked up and found that the entire planet had mountains, lakes, and rivers. Moreover, between these mountains, lakes, and rivers there were all kinds of buildings. Your Wu family's headquarters is on this planet? Lu Ming asked curiously. You can say that, but it's not very accurate, Wu Zifeng said. In fact, in the nine-extinction Heavenly King Mansion, there are many big families with a long history, such as our Wu family and the Qin family where Qin Wuyo and the rest came from. These big families all have experts working in the nine-extinction Heavenly King Mansion. Therefore, their headquarters are all set up on this planet. However, most of the ancestral lands of the great worlds are not here. They are scattered in different galaxies. That is the foundation of the big families. For example, although our Wu family's headquarters is here, our ancestral land is in another galaxy. Most of our experts are gathered there. Lu Ming nodded and roughly understood. Soon, an endless mountain range appeared in front of them. On these mountains, there were countless buildings that stretched as far as the eye could see. This was the Wu family's headquarters in the nine-extinction Heavenly King Mansion. Let's go, you guys stay in the Wu family first, Wu Zifeng said. Everyone flew forward. Third young master! Greetings, third young master! Along the way, many people bowed to Wu Zifeng. Although Wu Zifeng's cultivation was not very high, he was the son of the current Wu family head. His status was very high. After entering the Wu family, Wu Zifeng soon arranged a courtyard for Lu Ming and Qiu Moon to stay. In the blink of an eye, Lu Ming and Qiu Moon had been in the Wu family for 3 days. On this day, Wu Zifeng and Yu Linglong found Lu Ming. Brother Lu, there's something I want to ask of you, Wu Zifeng said. Brother Wu, if you have something to say, just say it. Lu Ming smiled. Brother Lu, are you selling that Devil Master token? Wu Zifeng said. Demon Lord token? What? Do you need it? If you need it, just take it. Autumn Moon and I only need 2 pieces, Lu Ming said. He had 3 Demon Master tokens and 1 Demon King token. He and Autumn Moon would only need 2 tokens to enter the Universal Camp. There was no point in keeping the extra 2 tokens. Originally, he wanted to give it to Wu Zifeng and Yu Linglong. However, their cultivation had not reached the Heavenly God realm, so they could not use it. It's like this. I have 2 cousins who also participated in the Starry Sky Camp assessment. However, they were unlucky and did not complete the assessment. Therefore, I would like to purchase 2 Demon Lord tokens from you, Wu Zifeng said. The Wu family also participated in the Starry Camp assessment? Why didn't I see him on Devil Capital Mountain? Lu Ming asked curiously. The Devil Capital Mountain assessment is just one of the many assessments in the Starry Camp. Actually, there are many geniuses who want to join the Starry Camp. The assessment of the Starry Camp is divided into many categories, and they are all randomly selected. Some people will be selected for one category, while others will be selected for another category. Those who go to the Devil Capital Mountain are only a small part of the Starry Camp assessment, Wu Zifeng explained. Lu Ming was enlightened. So that was the case. It seemed like Wu Zifeng's 2 cousins had participated in other assessments, and did not complete the assessment. It's alright. The Demon Lord token is useless. If your cousins need it, just give it to them, Lu Ming said. Then I will thank you in advance. I will call my 2 cousins over. Wu Zifeng revealed a joyful expression and left Lu Ming's courtyard. Not long later, Wu Zifeng came over with 2 young men. The 2 young men looked like they were in their 20s. They were tall and sturdy and handsome. Wu Ming! Wu Yu! Greetings, Brother Lu! The 2 young men cupped their fists towards Lu Ming. Brother, you are too polite. I heard that you 2 need the Demon Lord token, so I have 2 extra here. Here! 2 Demon Lord tokens appeared in Lu Ming's hand. With a wave of his hand, they flew towards Wu Ming and Wu Yu. Wu Ming and Wu Yu reached out to receive them and revealed a joyful expression. Brother Lu, how much are the Demon Lord tokens? We will buy them, Wu Ming said. Since you're Zifeng's brothers, then you're my brothers. We're all brothers of the same family, so there's no need to be so polite. I have no use for these 2 Demon Lord tokens, so just take them. There's no need to buy them, Lu Ming said with a smile. Then this, how can we accept it? Wu Yu was a little hesitant. Brothers Wu, unless you look down on me, Lu Ming, and don't want to be friends with me. Lu Ming purposely sighed. Brother Lu, you have misunderstood. We have heard from Zifeng that Brother Lu is a peerless genius. We have long wanted to be friends with you. How can we look down on you? That's right. If that's the case, we will accept these Demon Lord tokens, Wu Ming and Wu Yu quickly said. Brothers Wu, when are you going to the Starry Camp? Lu Ming changed the topic and asked. There are 7 more days before we report to the Starry Camp. How about we go together then? Wu Ming said. That's what I want. Lu Ming smiled. They were all young people and soon became familiar with each other. The few of them took out wine and chatted while drinking. Lu Ming knew more about the 9 Extinction Heavenly King Palace. After 3 rounds of wine, Wu Zifeng and the others left. In the next few days, Lu Ming and Qiu Yu stayed in the Wu family. They did not know that there were 2 black-robed men wandering around the Wu family. What should we do? They have entered the Wu family, one of them said. The Wu family was extremely powerful. There was nothing they could do when Lu Ming and his crew entered the Wu family. It's impossible for them to stay in the Wu family forever. They have acquired the Demon Emperor badges and the Demon Lord tokens. They will most likely join the Starry Camp. We should prepare ourselves on the way to the Starry Camp and kill them all, the other black-robed man said coldly. The 2 observed for a while longer before leaving the place. 3 days were gone in the blink of an eye. On this day, Lu Ming was cultivating. In the past few days, he had been cultivating the Saint-grade divine technique he had obtained from the Dark Knight Devil King. Previously at the Demon Capital Mountain, Lu Ming had forcefully broken through to the 4th layer Heaven God realm, resulting in his foundation being unstable. It was impossible for Lu Ming to have a breakthrough in the following days. He could only strengthen his foundation before he could continue to break through to the next level. While he was polishing his foundation, Lu Ming could use this opportunity to practice his new magical technique. At that instant, a strange energy fluctuation was emitted from Lu Ming's wrist. The energy fluctuation came from Qiu. Qiu had always turned into a bracelet on Lu Ming's wrist. It had been asleep for a few hundred years, but there was finally some movement now. Lu Ming was overjoyed. Chapter 2977. Lu Ming was overjoyed. Qiu, who had not moved for hundreds of years, finally moved. He knew that Qiu had most likely refined the bronze that it had devoured in the ancient god world. After refining it for hundreds of years, what realm would Qiu's cultivation reach? Lu Ming was looking forward to it. At this moment, Qiu's bracelet glowed and flew out, turning into a metal ball that emitted a powerful energy wave. Qiu Moon was also startled. She came out of her room and looked at Qiu curiously. Young master, what's wrong? Qiu Moon asked. Qiu is about to evolve. Such a powerful energy wave. Lu Ming's expression changed slightly. The light emitted from Qiu's body became brighter, and the energy wave that it emitted became stronger. Come, let's leave this place first, Lu Ming said. He waved his hand and put Qiu into a storage ring. Then, he and Qiu Moon flew out of the Wu family. Lu Ming was a guest brought back by the 3rd young master of the Wu family, Wu Zifeng. Naturally, no one stopped them. Lu Ming left the Wu family smoothly. He sped up and found a secluded place to let Qiu out. Boom! As soon as Qiu was let out, it emitted a powerful energy wave. At the same time, an endless amount of divine qi gathered toward Qiu. Fortunately, this was the Jiuju Heavenly King residence. The divine qi was extremely dense, even denser than low-grade divine crystals. A large amount of divine chi was absorbed by Qiuqiu. Qiuqiu's aura rose at an astonishing speed. 3rd level Heavenly God, 4th level Heavenly God, 5th level Heavenly God. Soon, it reached 9th level Heavenly God. This, Lu Ming and Qiu Moon were dumbfounded. They were stunned by the speed of improvement. The speed of improvement was faster than a rocket. However, it did not stop after reaching 9th level Heavenly God. It continued to improve. At the next moment, Qiuqiu's aura skyrocketed again. It broke through 9th level Heavenly God and reached the half-step Divine King realm. However, it was still not the limit. It was still improving. Could it break through to the Divine King realm? Lu Ming was both shocked and expectant. After sleeping for several hundred years, he had managed to make a breakthrough from Celestial God realm all the way to God King realm. If others were to hear of this, they would surely be shocked to death. However, Qiuqiu had refined the mysterious bronze, so anything was possible. Qiuqiu's body shone with resplendent light, flickering with a bronze luster. Its body seemed to be nurturing a terrifying energy that was charging towards the God King realm. Boom! Boom! Intense rumbling sounds came from Qiuqiu's body. After a while, boom! An incomparably terrifying aura burst out from Qiuqiu's body. A powerful pressure emanated from Qiuqiu. Under this pressure, Lu Ming and Qiuyu could not help but retreat continuously. They only came to a stop after they had retreated more than 10,000 meters. Qiuqiu really broke through the pressure of a God King. Lu Ming was delighted. Qiuqiu's strength was already shocking. If it broke through to the Divine King realm, it would be even more powerful. Now that Lu Ming had just arrived at the 9 Extinction Heavenly King Palace, he did not know what kind of danger he would face. Now that Qiuqiu had broken through, it would become a powerful helper for Lu Ming. Phew! 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 Boundless energy gathered towards Qiuqiu. A few hours later, Qiuqiu stopped absorbing the energy, and its aura stabilized. Celestial God Realm. Lu Ming could feel that Qiuqiu's cultivation was at Celestial God Realm. After retracting its aura, a pair of eyes and a mouth appeared on Qiuqiu's round body as it looked at Lu Ming. Lu Ming! Lu Ming! I have broken through to the Divine King realm. Ha! Qiuqiu laughed and pounced towards Lu Ming, landing on Lu Ming's shoulder. You can speak now? Lu Ming smiled. Yes, I can after breaking through to the Divine King realm. Unfortunately, I am only at Celestial God realm. Qiuqiu let out a sigh. Lu Ming and Qiuyu were speechless. Qiuqiu had only slept for a few hundred years and he had broken through to the Divine King realm, yet he still looked unsatisfied. If others knew about this, wouldn't they be angered to death? Lu Ming, why are you only at Celestial God realm? Isn't that too slow? How did you cultivate? Qiuqiu spoke again, almost causing Lu Ming to suffer internal injuries. Lu Ming's eyelids twitched a few times as he said, Yes, you are awesome. All right, I will rely on you if I encounter an opponent that I cannot defeat in the future. Don't worry, leave it to me. I feel like I have endless energy. Qiuqiu shouted as its round body bounced around in the air. Lu Ming was in a good mood as Qiuqiu had broken through to the Divine King realm. He took out a large amount of precious metals and fed them to Qiuqiu. Qiuqiu's eyes lit up when it saw the metals. It extended 2 of its tentacles and stuffed them into its mouth. It was beaming with joy. With Qiuqiu's awakening, the following days were livelier. Soon, 10 days had passed. On this day, Lu Ming and Qiuyu met up with Wu Ming and Wu Yu. They left the Wu family and headed towards the Starry Camp. The Starry Camp was also on the planet 9 Extinction Heavenly King residence. It was quite far away from the Wu family. The 4 of them quickly flew towards the Starry Camp. Lu Ming, wait! Just as everyone was flying over a mountain range, the quantifying character formula called out, looking rather anxious. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat and he immediately shouted, Wait! He pulled Qiuyu's hand and stopped. Brother Lu, what's wrong? Seeing Lu Ming suddenly stop, Wu Ming and Wu Yu also stopped and looked at Lu Ming in surprise. Lu Ming did not answer. He did not know what was going on either. He was asking Chiyochiyo. Old Chiyochiyo, what's wrong? Lu Ming asked. I don't know the details. I can sense that the energy in front is abnormal, Chiyochiyo said. Abnormal energy? Lu Ming was puzzled. Yes, the energy is abnormal. It's very powerful. It's like some kind of formation, Chiyochiyo said. Chiyochiyo did not know much about formations, but he was extremely sensitive to energy. Formation? Lu Ming frowned. There was actually a formation in this barren mountain range. Could there be some kind of ruins in front? Lu Ming's imagination ran wild. There might be a formation in front, Lu Ming said to Wu Yu and Wu Ming. A formation? Could it be some kind of ruins? Wu Ming and Wu Yu thought so too. I don't know, but this formation is very powerful. I'm afraid it's not something we can break. Let's remember the location and find some experts to break it in the future. Let's bypass this place first, Lu Ming said. Wu Ming and Wu Yu nodded. This was a safer method. Then everyone bypassed this area and moved forward in another direction. However, they did not fly far. In the barren mountain below, there was a flash of light. A group of people surrounded Lu Ming and the other three in the middle. This was a group of people wearing blood-rimmed robes with a wooden expression. However, each of them was emitting a cold, murderous intent. Chapter 2978. Who are you guys? Wu Yu and Wu Ming's faces changed drastically as they shouted. However, these people in blood-red robes did not even look at Wu Ming and Wu Yu. Their expressions were still stiff. You guys are able to sense our formation and go around it. Impressive, but you still have to die. One of the burly men spoke. Even when he spoke, his expression was still stiff. His voice was cold and emotionless. So, you guys are the ones who set up the formation? Lu Ming's eyes turned cold. It seemed that the other party had been waiting for them here for a long time and had set up a large formation here. Fortunately, the measure character formula had sensed the unusual energy fluctuation and thus avoided the formation. Otherwise, once they walked into the formation set up by others, it would be really dangerous. Who were the other party? Lu Ming thought of Qin Wuyo and the others. In the Qin Tian Star Field, Lu Ming had fought with Qin Wuyo and the others. He had suppressed a group of sky prides from the 9 Extinction Heavenly King Palace and offended a group of people. Those people had a reason to kill Lu Ming. However, when Lu Ming arrived, he did not see Qin Wuyo and the others. How did they know that Lu Ming was here? There was also Wu Shui and the others that he had met in the Devil Capital Mountain. Those people also had a reason to kill Lu Ming. However, they did not know that he had come to the 9 Extinction Heavenly King Palace. Could it be that I'm being followed? Lu Ming's heart suddenly moved as he thought of this possibility. This was the only way for the Wu family to get to the Starry Sky Camp. If the other party did not keep an eye on his whereabouts, how could they set up a formation here? Lu Ming thought of so many things in an instant. However, the other party had already made their move. Kill! 3 burly men with stiff expressions appeared in their hands. 2 rays of saber light slashed towards Lu Ming at the same time. Fast, extremely fast. They attacked at the same time without any delay. Their coordination was flawless. It was obvious that they had been trained for many years. If you want to kill our Wu family's friend, you'll have to go through us first. Wu Yu and Wu Ming shouted and attacked as well. The divine skills they cultivated were extremely unique. Once they attacked, 10,000 horses galloped. Hundreds of divine horses stepped on the void, wanting to trample the enemy to death. However, as the saber light slashed out, the divine horses were shattered one by one. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of mystical horses were annihilated. Wu Ming and Wu Yu were knocked back while vomiting mouthfuls of blood. Half-step Divine King Realm, which clan are you from? Wu Ming and Wu Yu roared at the same time. Both of them were 8th-layer heavenly gods, and their divine force was undoubtedly divine-grade divine force. However, their opponent was a half-step god king, which completely suppressed them. Let's go down and find the answer. said the two middle-aged men coldly. Once again, they attacked Lu Ming. The other people in blood-red robes surrounded them to prevent Lu Ming and the others from escaping. Roar! At this moment, Lu Ming let out an ancient god's roar. His body rapidly swelled up, transforming into an ancient god's body. Boom! Boom! His long spear shuddered and swept forward, colliding with the saber light. Two explosions took place, and the two middle-aged men were sent flying. His strength is indeed shocking. Let's attack together and end this quickly, one of the men in blood-red robes said coldly. With a flicker, he charged at Lu Ming. The others also attacked at the same time. Rays of saber light were dazzling and filled with murderous intent. It was a saber designed to kill. There was nothing fancy about it, but it was swift and powerful. You guys stay behind me. Lu Ming waved his hand, shrouding Chiu Yu, Wu Ming, and Wu Yu with a god force. Following which, his long spear shuddered and fired rays of spear light. Dozens of giant spear shadows filled the sky, piercing in all directions. Explosions took place between the heavens and earth. There were 12 men in blood-red robes in total. All of them were half-step divine kings. Furthermore, they had all practiced divine skills designed to kill. Their strength was terrifying when they worked together. Even with Lu Ming's current strength, it was still difficult for him to fight them. Clang! A ray of saber light pierced through Lu Ming's attack and landed on his body. Sizzling sounds could be heard and sparks could be seen. A piece of green scale was cut open and fresh blood oozed out. The other party's attack was enough to break through Lu Ming's defense. Get lost! Lu Ming shouted and unleashed the divine dragon image technique. 7 nine-clawed dragon images rushed towards a direction. At the same time, Lu Ming also rushed towards the same direction. Bang! Bang! A series of clashes broke out. A few of the men in blood-red robes were pushed back by the 9-clawed dragon images. Then, Lu Ming took the opportunity to break out of the encirclement. After breaking out of the encirclement, Lu Ming protected Chiu Yu and the others behind him. He no longer had any scruples. Since you want to kill me, then all of you shall stay here today. Lu Ming's eyes flashed with ruthlessness. He broke out of the encirclement not because he wanted to escape, but because he wanted to have a better opportunity to attack. Star burst! Lu Ming roared. Then, the divine power in Lu Ming's body poured into the long spear. Whoosh! A huge ray of spear light burst out from the long spear and pierced towards the 12 men in blood-red robes. Go around them! One of the men in blood-red robes shouted coldly. The 12 men in blood-red robes used a strange technique and dodged the attack of the spear light. They went around the spear light from both sides. Lu Ming's lips curled into a cold smile. How could the star burst move be so easily avoided? Explode! Lu Ming whispered. Boom! The huge spear light suddenly exploded and turned into countless waves of energy that swept in all directions. It was like a stormy sea, crushing the 12 men in blood-red robes. Not good! The 12 men in blood-red robes were shocked and retreated frantically. However, they were still hit by the powerful waves of energy and coughed up blood. They were seriously injured. Kill! Lu Ming took the opportunity to attack. However, at this moment, Lu Ming's face changed drastically. He felt a terrifying pressure coming from the sky. Then, an incomparably powerful force pressed down on Lu Ming. Lu Ming did not care about killing his opponents. He waved his spear and swept it towards the sky. At this moment, he realized that there was a ray of saber light in the sky that was slashing towards him. Boom! The ray of saber light struck the long spear. In an instant, Lu Ming's face changed. The power of this ray of saber light was terrifying and unfathomable. Lu Ming was shocked, and his body retreated. The long spear in his hand was constantly vibrating, and he almost lost his grip on it. Divine King! Lu Ming whispered and looked at the sky. There was another man in blood-red robes in the sky. He looked to be in his 60s. He stepped on the void and came down from the sky. This man was a Divine King expert. The man in blood-red robes stared at Lu Ming in astonishment. I've received news that a fourth-layer heaven god realm cultivator's strength is monstrous. I didn't believe it at first, so I asked them to give it a try. Who would have thought that your strength is even more terrifying than I imagined? The man exclaimed. This man in the blood-lined robe was much more emotional than the other men in blood-lined robes. Chapter 2979. Men of sacrifice, your men of sacrifice! Suddenly, Wu Ming thought of something and his face turned ugly. So what if you can see it? The divine king in blood-red robes sneered coldly. Which family are you from? We're the core disciples of the Wu family. You dare to kill us? Are you trying to start a war with the Wu family? Wu Yu shouted. Who knows who killed you if I kill all of you? The other party sneered. You! Wu Ming and Wu Yu's face turned pale with despair. The other party even sent a divine king men of sacrifice. They would definitely die today. 12 half-step divine kings and 1 divine king. It's a sure thing to kill us heavenly gods. Since we're going to die, can you tell me who sent you? Lu Ming pretended to be desperate and asked. Kid, don't try to trick us, we won't tell you. A cold voice was heard. It did not come from the God-King realm man in a blood-red robe, but from behind Lu Ming. Lu Ming, Chiu Autumn Moon, Wu Ming and Wu Yu's expression changed and they quickly turned around. Unknowingly, another man in a blood-red robe appeared behind them. He was a skinny middle-aged man, but the aura he emitted was extremely terrifying. Divine King! Another divine king. The other party sent out 2 divine kings. Wu Ming and Wu Yu were in despair. The other party's plan was flawless. They sent out 2 divine kings. Moreover, they didn't appear at once. They sent out 1 divine king first, while the other one hid in the dark to check the situation. After making sure that there was no problem, the other divine king appeared. 2 divine kings surrounded them from the front and back. In addition, there were 12 half-step divine king experts. With such a lineup, Lu Ming and the others were doomed. Lu Ming also pretended to look miserable. He gave a long sigh and said, 2 divine kings. What a big deal. Are there any more? Come out together. We're more than enough to kill you. The skinny middle-aged man said. Since we're going to die, can you tell me why you want to kill me? Is it for revenge or something on me? Lu Ming asked again. He wanted to take the opportunity to get some clues from the other party. However, the 2 divine kings remained expressionless and didn't say anything. They didn't reveal any information. However, Lu Ming caught the expressions of the few half-step divine king realm men in blood-red robes. When Lu Ming asked this question, several half-step divine king realm men in blood-red robes instinctively glanced at the storage ring on Lu Ming's finger. He wasn't seeking revenge. He wanted to snatch something from Lu Ming. In an instant, Lu Ming made a judgment. What was it? Lu Ming's mind raced. Don't waste your breath on him. Let's finish the mission first. Behind him, the skinny middle-aged man shouted coldly, emitting a terrifying killing intent. Whoosh! A terrifying saber light slashed towards Lu Ming. Chiu, I'll leave it to you. Lu Ming waved his hand and Chiu flew behind him. 2 first heaven king god realm guys. Leave it to me. Chiu's voice resounded in Lu Ming's mind. Then, his body swelled, turning into a giant metal ball and dashing over. Dong! The saber light was shattered by Chiu's attack. His body didn't stop, rushing towards the skinny middle-aged man. This is... The skinny middle-aged man was shocked. He didn't expect that his attack would be shattered by a metal ball. Die! Chiu shouted. His giant body was like a mountain pressing down on the skinny middle-aged man. Get lost! The skinny middle-aged man reacted, holding his saber with both hands and slashing. Dong! The saber slashed on Chiu's body. However, it didn't split Chiu's body as he had expected. Instead, his body shook violently, retreating continuously. His arms were numb. Die! Chiu extended 2 tentacles, turning them into 2 sabers, slashing towards the skinny middle-aged man. In a flash, he had slashed hundreds of times. The skinny middle-aged man tried his best to fight back. Dong, 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 the two continued to clash. However, the skinny middle-aged man was no match for Chiyo. He tried his best to block a few attacks, but Chiyo slashed him horizontally, cutting him in half. He almost died. Damn it. How is this possible? At this moment, the Divine King in front of Lu Ming shouted as if he had just woken up from a dream. Kill! Kill that kid! The skinny middle-aged man was cut in half by Chiyo, but he didn't die. He shouted loudly. Die! The Divine King in front of Lu Ming shouted and attacked. A terrifying saber light slashed towards Lu Ming. Moon slashing. Lu Ming waved his long spear, using all of his strength to attack. Dong! Lu Ming felt like he was hit by an immemorial mountain. His body shook violently. His 100-meter-tall body was pushed back continuously. He felt his chi and blood tumbling in his body. He spat out a mouthful of blood. A Divine King was much stronger than a heavenly god and a half-step Divine King. With Lu Ming's current cultivation, he was still no match for a Divine King. As soon as Lu Ming retreated, Chiyo, Autumn Moon, Wu Ming and Wu Yu were exposed. I'll kill the three of you first. The other party shouted coldly and slashed with his saber. A terrifying saber light that was blood-red slashed towards Chiyo, Autumn Moon and the other two. If they were hit, with Chiyo and the other two's cultivation, they would definitely die. Chiyo, Lu Ming shouted. Leave it to me. Chiyo opened his mouth. Then, his round body emitted streaks of lightning. Asterisk zap, zap, asterisk a bolt of lightning as thick as an arm shot towards the Divine King in front of Lu Ming. The speed of the lightning was extremely fast. In a flash, it reached the other party's saber light. With a puff, the other party's saber light was extinguished. The lightning continued to strike the other party's body. Ah! A shrill scream was heard. Then, there was no sound. When the lightning disappeared, only a charred corpse could be seen floating in the air without any signs of life. In the next moment, the charred corpse fell to the ground. Dead? A Divine King was killed just like that. At this moment, the skinny man and the other men in blood-red robes were shocked. To kill a Divine King in one move, what kind of cultivation was that? Run! The skinny man shouted. Half of his body retreated in an attempt to escape. Did I say you could leave? Die! Chiyo's voice was heard as he slashed with his saber. This saber's strike carried traces of lightning. The skinny man screamed. He followed in the footsteps of the previous Divine King and was turned into a charred corpse. Another Divine King was killed. The 12 half-step Divine King men in blood-red robes were shocked. They fled in all directions. Trying to escape? Stay here! Lu Ming shouted coldly. He used the 9 Heavens Garuda technique and chased after the other party. At the same time, Chiyo also chased after them. He opened his mouth and shot out streaks of lightning like an electric net. Chapter 2980. Asterisk zap zap asterisk the lightning that Chiyo spat out was terrifyingly powerful as it charged forward like an electric net. 3 of the men in blood-red robes were struck by the lightning, and their bodies turned into ashes. At the same time, Lu Ming waved his spear and shot out thousands of spear lights towards the men in blood-red robes who were trying to escape. Then, Chiyo arrived and killed a few more of them. At this moment, Wu Ming and Wu Yu were completely dumbfounded. The tide of the battle had turned too quickly. Initially, they were in despair. The other party had sent out 12 half-step Divine King experts and 2 Divine King experts. They were just a bunch of Heavenly God Realm rookies. They were definitely going to die if they tried to kill them with such a lineup. They never expected that Lu Ming would throw out a metal ball that was so powerful that it killed the 2 Divine Kings in a few moves. A Divine King metallic life form! Wu Ming and Wu Yu muttered, unable to calm down. Chiyo, keep them alive! At this moment, Lu Ming transmitted his voice to Chiyo. All right, Chiyo replied. Its two tentacles turned into two large hammers and rushed towards one of the men in blood-red robes and smashed down. Although the man in blood-red robes tried his best to resist, how could he withstand Chiyochio's power with his strength? Even a divine king at the same level couldn't withstand Chiyochio's attack. Boom! The man in the blood-red robe was smashed into the ground like a meteor, causing a mountain to collapse. A huge crater appeared in the ground, and the man lay in the crater, twitching and coughing up mouthfuls of blood. He was half dead, unable to move. Then, Chiyochio rushed towards another man in blood-red robes. With Lu Ming blocking it and Chiyochio's astonishing speed, those men in blood-red robes couldn't escape at all. Dong! Dong! Chiyochio hammered the remaining 6 men in blood-red robes one by one. They were all embedded in the ground, half dead. 12 half-step divine kings and 2 divine kings were dealt with. How was it? Lu Ming, I'm awesome, right? Chiyochio's body shrunk and flew towards Lu Ming, looking like he was asking for credit. Amazing, absolutely amazing! Lu Ming gasped in admiration. He was truly in admiration. Chiyochio's battle prowess was becoming more and more astonishing. Those who could reach the Divine King realm were all geniuses. Their strength would not be weak. However, the other 2 God Kings were crushed by Chiyochio, unable to retaliate at all. Lu Ming estimated that Chiyochio's competence was enough to resist a warrior of the second sky of King God realm. If it used all of its powers, it could resist a warrior of the third sky of King God realm. One should know that it was much harder for a divine king to fight someone of a higher cultivation level than a heavenly god, true god or empty god. There were many Empyrean gods and true gods who were capable of fighting above their level of power, but once they reached the God King level, they would no longer be able to do so. After chatting with Chiyochio for a while, Lu Ming's body shrunk to the size of a normal person. He took a step forward and landed beside a person in a blood-rimmed robe. Tell me, who sent you? Tell me and I'll spare your life, Lu Ming said. If you want to kill me, then kill me. Don't even think about getting a single word out of me, the other party said coldly. Aren't you afraid of death? Lu Ming's voice was even colder. If you want to kill me, then kill me. The other party was expressionless and fearless. Puff. Lu Ming was straightforward. With a flick of his finger, a ray of spear light shot out and pierced the other party's forehead, killing him instantly. Then, with a flash of his body, he appeared beside the next person in a blood-rimmed robe. Tell me, who sent you? Lu Ming continued to ask. The other party had seen everything that had happened. However, there was no fear in his eyes. With a wooden expression, he said, If you want to kill me, then kill me. Don't even think about getting a single word out of me. His answer was exactly the same as the previous person. Do you think that I don't have a way to deal with you if you don't answer me? Lu Ming harumphed coldly. His divine power surged out and restrained the other party. Then, he performed a soul-searching technique to find the answer from the other party's soul. However, when Lu Ming's spiritual consciousness approached the other party's soul suddenly glowed and emitted a powerful fluctuation. Not good! Lu Ming was shocked. He quickly withdrew his spiritual consciousness. The moment he did so, the other party's head exploded like a watermelon. Self-destruct! Lu Ming's face was gloomy. There was a self-destruct restriction placed in the other party's soul. Once the other party's soul got close, the other party's soul would self-destruct. Lu Ming, it's useless. These are men of sacrifice trained by the big families. There's a self-destruct restriction placed in their souls. It's impossible to search their souls for information. At this moment, Wu Ming, Wu Yu, and Xiu Yu flew over. Wu Ming said, Men of sacrifice trained by the big families? Which big families train men of sacrifice? Lu Ming asked. Some of the big families in the 9 Extinction Heavenly King Mansion have trained men of sacrifice to carry out some shady missions secretly. Even our Wu family has them, Wu Ming said. That's right. These men of sacrifice are very secretive. It's impossible to identify which family they belong to, Wu Yu added. Let's try again. Lu Ming was still unwilling to give up. He interrogated the remaining 4 men in blood-edged robes. However, the other party did not say a word. Once he searched their souls, the other party's soul would explode. In the end, Lu Ming had no choice but to finish off the remaining men in blood-edged robes. What a pity! Lu Ming sighed softly. He had a feeling that these men of sacrifice were here for something on him. Lu Ming speculated that it might be the Dark Knight Demon King's storage ring. If they're really here for the Dark Knight Demon King's storage ring, it's very likely to be related to the theft of the 9 Extinction Divine Crystal. There might be clues in the Dark Knight Demon King's storage ring, so the other party wants to snatch it back. Lu Ming kept thinking, but he had more doubts. Because he had already checked the Dark Knight Demon King's storage ring and found nothing. Originally, he wanted to find out who sent these men of sacrifice to kill him. If he could find the person behind the scenes, he might be able to find the real culprit behind the theft of the 9 Extinction Divine Crystal. Unfortunately, the clues were cut off. It seems like I have to be more careful in the future. This time, it's all thanks to Chiu. Lu Ming secretly rejoiced in his heart. He had to admit that his luck was not bad. Fortunately, Chiu had woken up before this and his strength had greatly improved. Otherwise, he would be in danger. Lu Ming, let's hurry to the Starry Camp. There are many experts in the Starry Camp. No force would dare to send people to commit murder in the Starry Camp, Wu Ming said. All right. Lu Ming nodded. Then, the 4 of them set off for the Starry Camp. Not long after Lu Ming and the other 3 left, a few men in black robes appeared. When the men in black robes saw the corpses on the ground, they were stunned. What happened? What is going on? Even the Divine King was killed. That kid is definitely not that strong, one of the men in black robes roared. Chapter 2981. The 2 black-robed men were shocked by the scene in front of them. Could it be that the Wu family secretly sent experts to protect them? The other black-robed man guessed. Yes, that must be it. Damn the Wu family! One of the black-robed men roared. They thought that the Wu family secretly sent experts to protect Lu Ming and the rest. That was why the men of sacrifice they sent out were all wiped out. It's too late to send experts to kill them now. What should we do? Once they enter the Starry Camp, we won't be able to do anything, one of the black-robed men said. We can only report the situation to our superiors and wait for the Lord to make a decision. However, even if he enters the Starry Camp, he won't be safe. Let's go! With a flash, the few black-robed men disappeared without a trace. Along the way, Lu Ming and the rest were even more careful. Luckily, they didn't encounter any danger. Not long after, they finally arrived at the Starry Camp. This is the Starry Camp? Lu Ming looked at the barren land in front of him and was stunned. This is all an illusion. There's a large formation ahead. Let's continue, Wu Ming said. The 4 of them continued to move forward and stepped into the barren land. At this moment, the space around Lu Ming and the rest suddenly rippled. Then, 2 white-haired old men suddenly appeared. This is the Starry Camp. What are you here for? One of the old men said. Seniors, we are here to join the Starry Camp. Wu Ming bowed respectfully. Oh? Do you have proof? The old man who spoke before continued. Seniors, please take a look. Then, Lu Ming and the rest took out the Demon King token and Demon Lord token. One of the old men waved his hand and kept the token. After checking it carefully, he said, This is the proof for one of the tests. Congratulations on joining the Starry Camp. Then, he waved his hand and the space rippled. Then, a light door appeared out of nowhere. Go in. The 2 old men waved their hands. Thank you, seniors. Lu Ming and the rest cupped their fists and stepped into the light door. After stepping into the light door, Lu Ming and the rest arrived at a square. What a dense divine aura! As soon as he entered, Lu Ming felt that the divine qi here was much richer than outside. Then, Lu Ming looked at him. Quite a few people had already gathered in the square. At a glance, there were at least a few hundred people. Looks like we're late. Everyone else has arrived, Wu Yu said. It was obvious that these people were like Lu Ming and the rest, new recruits to the Starry Sky Camp. It's them. Lu Ming glanced around and saw some familiar faces. For example, the blood-robed youth, Wu Shui, and the others he had met on the Devil Capital Mountain. Kid, it's you! Wu Shui and the others also saw Lu Ming and looked over with unfriendly gazes. Haha, we are really fated to meet here again. Lu Ming smiled. Hee hee, it's fate. Kid, let's wait and see. Wu Shui's senior brother, the blood-soaked youth, said coldly. You're still lacking, Lu Ming said disdainfully. Arrogant. Wu Shui's senior brother shouted coldly as his eyes were filled with killing intent. He couldn't fight here, and he was indeed not Lu Ming's opponent. However, this was the Starry Sky Camp and many of his senior brothers were in the camp. Lu Ming would be in trouble in the future. Lu Ming smiled faintly and couldn't be bothered with these people. He walked to the side with Xiu Yu, Wu Ming, and Wu Yu and waited quietly. Another hour passed, and another dozen or so people arrived one after another. At this moment, a shadow flashed in the air and a burly man in linen clothes appeared. Welcome to the Starry Sky Camp. Now follow me. I will arrange your accommodations, the burly man said. Thank you, senior. Someone cupped his fist. Hee hee. The burly man in linen clothes smiled meaningfully and turned around to leave. The rest followed. After flying across the square, a huge mountain appeared in front of them. This mountain took up a large area and was very tall. It was at least a few 100,000 feet tall. Looking from afar, one could see the mountain with many buildings. From afar, the burly man in linen clothes landed on the ground. The rest followed and landed on the ground as well. With that mountain as the center, the core area of the Starry Sky Camp is 100,000 miles away. In the future you will cultivate and rest within that area. The burly man in linen clothes said. Yes. Many people nodded their heads. Also, let me tell you, the new members are not allowed to fly within that area. They can only walk. Do you understand? The burly man in linen clothes said. Not allowed to fly. Is there a flight restriction array in there? Someone asked. No, there is no flight restriction array. Even an empty god can fly freely. However, you are not allowed to fly. That is the rule. The burly man in linen clothes paused and sneered. Once someone breaks the rule, he will be expelled from the Starry Sky Camp and will never be recruited again. Expelled from the Starry Sky Camp forever? Many people's faces changed. There was a rule in the Taishu dynasty. In order to enter the core area of the Taishu dynasty to cultivate, one must be recommended by the Starry Sky Camp. In the future, if one wanted to climb up the ranks and gain fame in the Taishu dynasty, one must pass this step. If they were expelled from the Starry Sky Camp, they would lose the opportunity to cultivate in the core area of the Taishu dynasty. Not only that, it would be difficult for them to gain fame in the Taishu dynasty no matter how high their cultivation was. It was not easy for them to join the Starry Sky Camp. They would not allow themselves to be expelled. Not allowed to fly. Many people firmly remembered this rule in their hearts. All right, come with me, the burly man in linen clothes said and walked forward. Although they could not fly and could only walk, with their cultivation, they were still as fast as lightning. After a while, they entered the range of the mountain. The closer they got to the mountain, the thicker the divine chi became. There was even a mysterious fluctuation in the air that could clear one's mind and make one's mind more active. Here, I can feel that the speed of comprehending divine skills and practicing secret arts is much faster. Me too. It's said that the mountain peak is called Star Peak. At the peak of Star Peak, there's a supreme treasure that constantly emits a mysterious fluctuation. Under the influence of this fluctuation, even one's comprehension ability becomes much stronger. Sure enough, it's true. Some people discuss softly with excitement on their faces. I hope that you will be able to laugh later. The burly man in linen clothes laughed. What do you mean? Many people looked at each other after hearing what the burly man in linen clothes said. The burly man in linen clothes did not reply and continued to move forward. Soon, they reached the foot of the mountain. Whoosh! Whoosh! At this moment, the sound of something breaking through the air could be heard above their heads. A few youths had flown over their heads. More newcomers! Time really flies! The youths were chatting. Chapter 2982. Looking at the young men flying above their heads, many of them were puzzled. Senior, how can they fly? A young man asked curiously. They can fly because they live on top of it. The burly man pointed at the buildings on top of the mountain. There were some buildings built from the waist of the mountain. There were grand palaces and elegant courtyards. What do you mean by living on top of it? Are we not living on top of it? Many of the young men were puzzled. Correct. You are indeed not living on top of it because you are not qualified, the burly man said. If we are not qualified, then where are we staying? Someone asked. Follow me. The burly man did not answer. He smiled and continued to move forward. Everyone was curious and followed closely behind him. After they went over a few hills, a foul smell assaulted their noses. So smelly. Especially some of the girls, they frowned and showed a disgusted expression. You all will live there. The burly man pointed ahead. Everyone looked over. There was a spacious land in front of them. There were many small houses that were built simply with wood. Most importantly, there was a pasture around these wooden houses. There were many strange, desolate beasts that were being reared there. The source of the foul smell was the mixture of the desolate beasts' feces and urine. What do you mean we will live in such a place? Impossible, I will not live in such a place. Is such a rubbish place for humans to live in? A few of the girls shrieked. It's fine if you don't want to. Scram! The burly man said coldly. A few of the girls shut their mouths. However, they looked around and were obviously thinking of a solution. Let me tell you. You have to stay here even if you don't want to. You cannot stay anywhere else. This is the rule. If you violate it, you will be expelled from the interstellar camp forever, the burly man said coldly. Some of the girls turned pale and some of the men frowned. Some people did indeed have the same idea earlier. They might as well not stay here and find a clean place to cultivate. However, they had to stay. This was the rule. Those who could join the interstellar camp were all absolute geniuses that possessed divine-grade divine power. In the Chin Tian star field, they were equivalent to divine sons. 90% of them were from big factions or clans. When had they ever stayed in such a place? Many people frowned. They didn't expect that they would have to stay in such a place after coming to the starry camp. Moreover, none of the people who had joined the starry camp in the past had said that there was such a rule. Also, I'm warning you all. The rules of the starry camp must not be leaked. If you do, you will be expelled from the starry camp and will never be allowed to enter again, the burly man said again. Many of the young women had pale faces, and many of them had bitter mouths. Senior, what do I have to do to be able to live there? Someone pointed to the buildings on the mountain peak and asked. The buildings here were at the foot of the mountain. Compared to the buildings halfway up the mountain, the difference was like heaven and earth. If you want to live there, it's very simple. It's a challenge. As long as you can defeat the people up there, you will be able to replace them. You will be able to live up there and cultivate. At the same time, you will be able to fly freely in this region. The burly man in sackcloth said. This made many people's eyes burn with passion. Challenge. As long as one defeated the person who lived above him, they would be able to replace him. Obviously, not only was the environment of the buildings at the top of the mountain much better than at the foot of the mountain, the closer one was to the top of the mountain, the greater the influence of the treasures at the top of the star peak, and the better one's comprehension ability. On top of that, they would be able to fly. They could clearly fly, but they couldn't. They could only watch as others looked at them from above. That feeling was indescribable. I want to challenge. A young woman shouted, emitting a powerful aura from her body. 8th layer Heavenly God Realm. This woman was an 8th layer Heavenly God Realm cultivator, and she was in control of divine-grade divine power. If she was in the Qin Tian starfield, she would be an unrivaled genius. However, it was very normal here. Everyone's expression was calm, and there was no surprise at all. In the 9 Extinction Heavenly King residence, the basic requirement to be called a genius was to be in control of divine-grade divine power. Those who had not mastered divine-grade divine power could not be called geniuses. I want to challenge too. Me too. Who would want to live in such a god-forsaken place? Many people shouted. These people were all geniuses in the outside world, people who were 1 in a billion. They were all full of confidence in themselves. You can't challenge them yet. You have to stay in those buildings for 7 days. You can only challenge them after 7 days. The burly man in sackcloth said coldly. What do you mean by we have to stay for 7 days? What kind of rule is that? No, I don't want to stay. Senior, can you give me a way out? I'll challenge them and stay there after 7 days. Many people wailed. You don't want to stay? Sure, please go back and stay in your palace's courtyard. The burly man in sackcloth said indifferently, then stepped forward. Those who were wailing could only sigh. They could only endure it for now. Don't talk nonsense. Come with me. Each of you will choose a room within an incense's time. If you don't choose a room by then, I'll personally send you home. The burly man in sackcloth said. Everyone sighed, and could only follow and start choosing their rooms. Some people wanted to choose the rooms that were further away from the ranch, and had a weaker stench, but they were disappointed. These rooms were built in the middle of the ranch, and they were all the same. Every single one of them smelled terrible. Autumn Moon, are you used to it? Lu Ming looked at Autumn Moon. Young master, don't worry. It's not like Autumn Moon hasn't suffered before. Autumn Moon smiled faintly. Well, then choose a room. 7 days later, I'll bring you to stay there. Lu Ming smiled. After that, Lu Ming, Autumn Moon, Wu Ming, Wu Yu, and the others all chose a room. After an incense's time, everyone found a room and stayed there. The burly man in sackcloth chuckled and left. Lu Ming walked into the room. The room was very simple. There was only a bed and a wooden table. In the room, a stench came out. Even with Lu Ming's temperament, he couldn't help but frown. Letting out a breath, Lu Ming sat cross-legged and quietly cultivated. 7 days would soon pass, and it didn't matter. However, he could endure it, but some people couldn't. Before a day was up, someone roared. Damn it, what the hell is this place? I'll definitely kill my way up there in 7 days. I'll kill my way up there too. Some people roared, and their voices echoed in the area. Lu Ming smiled faintly. It seemed that there were many people who had the same thoughts as him. However, was it really that easy to kill their way up there? Lu Ming felt that it wouldn't be that easy. The reason for that was because he had observed earlier that before they had moved in, there were many such wooden houses that had been occupied. Those people obviously joined the Starry Camp in the past. Those who joined in the past still stayed here. It was obvious that it wouldn't be easy to kill their way up there. Chapter 2983. There were originally many wooden houses here that had people living in them. That meant many of the heavenly geniuses who had entered the Starry Sky Camp were still living here. Those heavenly geniuses who were able to enter the Starry Sky Camp weren't weak at all. If it was so easy to kill their way up, they would have already done so. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. When the 8th day arrived, several voices echoed in the area. Kill our way up! I want to live up there! I've had enough of this place! Following which, many figures followed the mountain path and rushed towards the star peak. Brother Lu, Miss Autumn Moon, let's go take a look together. Wu Ming and Wu Yu walked over. All right. Lu Ming nodded. Together with Miss Autumn Moon, they rushed up the mountain path. Haha, these newcomers are going up to challenge us. Several figures began to walk out of the wooden houses. Those people were the old members of the Starry Sky Camp. They've only just joined, but each one of them thinks they're infallible. They don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Let's go take a look. It's been a long time since the Starry Sky Camp was this lively. A few of the old members of the Starry Sky Camp laughed and followed them up the mountain. Star Peak was extremely tall. Even halfway up the mountain, it was still over 100,000 meters tall. But to Lu Ming and the others, that was nothing. They quickly arrived at the halfway point. There were many courtyards built at the halfway point. The divine qi here was dense, and the fragrance of flowers filled their nostrils. It was like heaven and earth compared to the foot of the mountain. Many people's gazes became even more fiery. They swore that they would definitely seize a courtyard this time. Everyone in the courtyard, scram out here. A robust youth was the most impatient. He directly appeared in front of a courtyard and roared. Who's shouting? You're courting death. A cold voice sounded out from the courtyard. Then, the door opened and a youth with a grim expression walked out. The callous youth's gaze swept over Lu Ming and the others. His gaze landed on the robust youth and he disdainfully said, Newcomer. So what if I'm a newcomer? Let me tell you, I've taken a fancy to your courtyard. I challenge you right now. Do you dare accept my challenge? If you don't, then scram. The muscular young man shouted with a confident look on his face. You want to challenge me? Ha, good. Go ahead. If you can defeat me, this monastery is yours. The cold-looking young man looked relaxed, as if he didn't put the burly young man in his eyes at all. Arrogant. Heaven-shaking divine elephant, suppress. The burly young man shouted as a powerful aura erupted from his body. 8th level celestial god. The muscular young man's cultivation had reached the 8th layer heaven god realm. Needless to say, his god force was at the divine level too. Divine power burst forth. As the burly young man pushed out his palms, a giant elephant condensed. It was 10,000 meters tall and stood between the heavens and the earth. It trampled towards the cold young man. Humph, it's just a facade, the grim young man said coldly. His figure suddenly flashed and rushed out like a goshawk. Chilathan, the cold-looking youth, waved his hand and clawed out. His claws were very small compared to the giant elephant, but when his sharp claws grabbed the giant elephant, they burst forth with terrifying power. Touched the gigantic elephant's body directly exploded. How is this possible? The burly youth was shocked. He didn't expect that his ultimate move would be broken so easily. Shwa after the cold young man defeated the giant elephant, he didn't stop moving. In a flash, he appeared above the burly young man's head and clawed down. The burly young man's expression changed drastically. He punched out with all his strength, and the sound of elephant trumpeting could be heard. He wanted to condense another giant elephant to fight against the cold young man. However, the cold young man's claws were incomparably sharp. They penetrated downwards, and the giant elephant couldn't be condensed. Moreover, the burly young man's defense was as fragile as tofu in front of the cold young man. The cold young man's claws heavily clawed at the burly young man's shoulder. The burly young man cried out in pain. The bones in his shoulder were broken, and blood splattered everywhere. Then, the cold young man swung his hand and smashed the burly young man heavily onto the ground. Boom! The ground shook, and the burly young man cried out in pain. His body bounced up like a rubber ball before falling down. He laid on the ground, twitching non-stop. He was severely injured. Many people sucked in a cold breath. The burly young man's fighting strength was definitely not weak. He was an 8th layer heavenly god. He was definitely above average among the newcomers. However, he couldn't even withstand a single blow from the cold young man. 9th layer heavenly god. His cultivation has already reached the 9th layer heavenly god. Don't tell me that the people living in these villas are all 9th layer heavenly gods? Thinking of this, many people's expression became incomparably ugly. If the people living here were all 9th layer heavenly gods, then those below the 9th layer wouldn't be able to challenge them. Wouldn't that mean that they would have to live at the foot of the mountain for a long time? Thinking of the stench at the foot of the mountain, many people felt nauseous and almost vomited. How could this be? Damn it! Many people roared, their hearts turning cold. 9th layer heavenly god. Is it really that simple? How naive! Some of the older members sneered. Who else wants to challenge me, Ling Ying? Hurry up and make your move. I don't have that much time to waste with you. The cold young man swept his gaze across the crowd and said coldly. His name was Ling Ying. He really lived up to his name. Many people looked at each other, weighing their own strength. In the end, they shook their heads helplessly. If their strength couldn't surpass the sturdy young man, they would only be looking for trouble. I'll go. At this moment, a sonorous voice resounded. A black-robed young man stepped out. This person carried a long sword on his back, like an unsheathed divine sword. It's him. Lu Ming's eyes moved. He recognized this person. He was one of the 4 ninth-layer heavenly gods who attacked the Dark Knight Devil King in the Devil Capital Mountain. He was a sword cultivator. It's Xuedong. He's going to make his move. Xuedong is a 9th-layer heavenly god and a sword cultivator. He has a chance to defeat his opponent. Seeing Xuedong make his move, some people's eyes lit up. If Xuedong could defeat his opponent, it would give them a lot of hope. Hee, an ordinary 9th-layer heavenly god wants to defeat Ling Ying? What wishful thinking. One of the older members sneered. They're both 9th-layer heavenly gods. Xuedong is also a sword cultivator known for his offensive strength. How do you know that Xuedong can't defeat Ling Ying? A new member said unhappily. Ignorant. Just watch and you'll know. The older member said disdainfully. Make your move. Use your strongest move. Otherwise, you won't have a chance when I make my move. Ling Ying said coldly. Even though he was facing Xuedong, his face was still filled with disdain. King Xuedong was very straightforward. He made his move right away. Unsheathing his long sword, a bright and sharp sword light streaked across the void, slashing at Ling Ying. Chapter 2984. Xuedong's sword was extremely sharp. It slashed across the void, aiming for Ling Ying's chest. However, in the face of Xuedong's terrifying attack, Ling Ying's expression remained relaxed. He stretched out a hand and clawed out. Chi-chi, a sharp sound broke through the air. Ling Ying's claw turned into a divine eagle's claw, grabbing Xuedong's sword. Clang! Sparks flew, the divine eagle screeched, and the sword light vibrated. In the next moment, Xuedong's sword light shattered. A figure quickly retreated 100 meters before stabilizing himself. The person who retreated was Xuedong, while Ling Ying remained motionless. Many people were shocked. How could this be? Xuedong and Ling Ying were both 9th-level heavenly gods, and Xuedong was a sword cultivator who specialized in offense. How could he be pushed back by Ling Ying? Xuedong's eyes turned serious. His aura became stronger, and sword intent filled the air. Countless tiny sword chi wandered around him. Lone Star Destruction Sword! Xuedong roared. He struck out with his sword again, releasing countless sword chi. However, in the next moment, the sword chi condensed into a sword light as thick as a mountain, slashing at Ling Ying. Have you used your ultimate move? This move is more like it! Ling Ying's cold voice sounded. Then, Ling Ying soared into the sky, using his divine power. He seemed to have turned into a divine eagle, waving his blade-like wings. Boom! 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 Violent energy collided with each other, creating 1,000 layers of energy waves. In an instant there were hundreds of explosions. In the end, the sword light vibrated and shattered in the air. Then, a divine eagle flashed and disappeared. Following that, a figure screamed and retreated. Boom! Xuedong's body landed heavily on the mountain peak, vomiting blood. His chest was torn open, and there were a few bloody holes. They were obviously caused by the eagle's claws. Defeated. Xuedong, a 9th-level heavenly god sword cultivator, was defeated in just 2 moves. Why? Many new members were pale, unable to believe it. They were at the same level, and both of them had divine-grade divine power. Why was Xuedong defeated so badly? It's divine power. His divine power is about to awaken his origin factor. Suddenly, someone shouted. What? Origin factor? Someone exclaimed. However, there were also some people that revealed bewildered expressions. What was the origin factor? What is origin factor? Lu Ming muttered. He had never heard of it before. Brother Lu, you don't know about the origin factor? Wu Ming looked at Lu Ming and said. I don't know. Brother Wu, what is the origin factor? Lu Ming shook his head and asked. The origin factor is the origin of a kind of divine power. Brother Lu, you should know that the primitive universe is divided into 2 eras, right? Wu Ming said. Yeah, there are 2 eras. The earliest one is the era of incipient God and the last one is the heavenly palace era. Lu Ming nodded. He had read about this in the ancient records long ago. The long history of this universe was divided into the incipient God era and the heavenly palace era. In the incipient God era, the universe had just been created. Earth and heaven had given birth to so many intimidating existences. These existences were called incipient gods, the primitive gods. For example, the ancient god clan was also one of the incipient gods. And now, it was the later period of the heavenly palace era. In the incipient god era, the powerful existences were born naturally. They were born with different kinds of divine power. They were called the origin divine power. The current divine power can't be compared to them. Wu Ming said. Not even the divine grade divine power? Lu Ming asked. No, it's not even close. Wu Ming shook his head. The divine grade divine power and the origin divine power can't be compared to each other. The difference in quality is like the difference between rotten wood and gold. Not to mention the incipient God era, even in the early period of the heavenly palace era, the divine grade divine power was the most basic divine power. Any warrior who had some innate talents could control the divine grade divine power. However, as time passed, the divine chi in the primitive universe became thinner and thinner, and the origin became scarcer and scarcer. Cultivators were scattered all over the universe, so it became more and more difficult to control high-quality divine power. In the end, it evolved into divine power, saint divine power, king divine power, and ordinary divine power. Wu Ming spoke frankly. As he came from a big aristocratic family, he knew a lot about the history of the ancient desolate universe. Lu Ming was astounded. He didn't expect that in the early period of the heavenly palace era, the divine power that a warrior could control was the divine grade divine power. However, what did it have to do with the origin factor of the divine power? Lu Ming didn't say anything, waiting for Wu Ming to continue. Sure enough, Wu Ming continued. Strictly speaking, saint grade, king grade, and ordinary grade God force are all unqualified God force. These kinds of God force have limited potential. Cultivating to the God King realm is already the limit. It's impossible to break through any further. The reason is that these divine powers can't awaken the origin factor. Only the divine grade divine power can awaken the origin factor. Actually, every divine grade divine power is evolved from the original divine power of origin, and every divine grade divine power can find a corresponding divine power of origin. Therefore, as long as you continue to awaken the origin factor, the divine grade divine power can be transformed into the corresponding origin divine power. Then, you can control the origin and have infinite power, Wu Ming said. At this point, there was a burning flame in his eyes. Then how can I awaken the origin factor? Lu Ming asked again. His heart was burning with passion. Jing, you didn't leave behind this knowledge. There was no record of it in the universe myriad Dao technique. Comprehension and application. You can only continue to comprehend and control the divine grade divine power. When you reach a certain level, you can naturally awaken the origin factor, Wu Ming said. So, Leng Ying has awakened the origin factor? Lu Ming asked. Impossible. The origin factor isn't that easy to awaken. It's terrifyingly difficult. I'm afraid that not even 1 out of 100 divine grade divine powers can awaken it. Only when one's cultivation reaches the high-level divine king level will the chances be higher. I reckon that Leng Ying is only close to awakening the origin factor. Even so, his divine power will become extremely powerful and infinite. Wu Ming said. Lu Ming nodded. He had a rough understanding of the origin factor of divine power. It seemed that his previous understanding of divine power was wrong. Every divine-grade divine power had huge potential to be unearthed. Then, it seems that my current cultivation path is wrong, Lu Ming whispered. There were 10 types of divine powers in his body, but only 2 of them were divine-grade divine powers. According to Wu Ming, other than divine-grade divine powers, whether it was holy grade, king grade, or ordinary divine powers, they were all incomplete and had limited potential. Chapter 2985. Aside from the divine-grade divine force, the other divine forces had limited potential and could not awaken the origin factor. Therefore, it was meaningless to continue cultivating. It was just a waste of time. Looks like I have to find a chance to cultivate a divine-grade divine technique with a similar attribute to the divine force. Then I can integrate the divine fire into the divine-grade divine fire, Lu Ming thought. As long as he cultivated a divine-grade divine force with a similar attribute, he could integrate the divine-grade divine force, royal-grade divine force, and ordinary-grade divine force. Of course, Lu Ming could also disperse it himself. However, that would be too wasteful. Lu Ming had spent a lot of effort to cultivate each type of divine force. The Starry Camp is the place where the geniuses of the 9-Ju Heavenly King Mansion gather. There should be no shortage of divine-grade divine techniques, Lu Ming thought. A place like the Qin Tian Starfield had several divine-grade divine techniques. The 9-Ju Heavenly King Mansion would definitely not lack divine-grade divine techniques. After all, any one of the geniuses here had mastered divine-grade divine force. Most of the geniuses had relied on divine-grade divine arts to cultivate their cultivation. Lu Ming and Wu Mingyi were discussing. The others were also discussing as they looked at Ling Ying in awe. Ling Ying, even if he had not awakened the origin factor of his divine force, he was close to it. He was invincible among his peers. No wonder Shui Xiao was defeated so miserably. Who still wants my courtyard? Come and fight, don't waste my time. Ling Ying's eyes swept across the crowd. Many of them lowered their heads when they saw Ling Ying's sharp eyes. No one wanted to fight. Xuedong's strength was definitely the top among the new members. If even he could not defeat him, the others would only be looking for trouble. I don't believe that the people living here are all so strong. Suddenly, a voice was heard. Many people's eyes lit up. That's right. Perhaps they were just unlucky to have chosen such an expert. Not everyone else had such a cultivation level. Whoosh! In a flash, a young man appeared in front of another courtyard. You want to challenge me? The owner of this courtyard was already alarmed by the commotion outside. He leaned against the door lazily and asked. That's right. I want your courtyard. A 9th-layer heaven god realm aura spread from his body. This was a genius no weaker than Xuedong. Make your move, the laid-back young man said lazily. Jumping Thunder Fist. The young man who challenged Yi Futian made his move and punched out. Lightning filled the sky and the void trembled. The power of his punch was shocking. However, after a few moves, the lightning dispersed, and the challenger followed in Xuedong's footsteps and was heavily injured. Defeated again. So strong, this person's strength is also very strong. He is also an existence that is close to awakening the divine power of origin. Someone exclaimed. Everyone else's faces turned pale. Was the second person also this strong? It couldn't be that the people who lived here were all so powerful, right? They were all close to awakening the origin divine force factor, right? In that case, no one would be able to succeed today. I don't believe it. Continue. Someone roared and continued to challenge the other monasteries. But reality proved that their guesses were correct. The geniuses who lived here all had shocking strength. They were all existences close to awakening their quintessence god force. Using a crushing method, they defeated them. In the end, no one continued to challenge him. Could it be that we have to stay here forever? No, I want to go home. At the scene, there was a wave of wailing. Of course, it was just wailing. No one really wanted to go home or leave. If they withdrew because of this reason, even if they returned to their respective families, they would probably be spurned. They would never be able to stand out. Sigh, it's better to work hard and cultivate. Try to awaken the origin divine force factor as soon as possible, or break through to the half-step divine king realm. That way, we can kill our way up here. Yeah. Many people sighed. They finally understood how terrifying the geniuses were. Some people wanted to withdraw. You, wait a moment. Suddenly, a cold voice rang out. An aura spread towards Lu Ming and landed on Autumn Moon. Oh? Lu Ming frowned. The owner of that aura was the first person to be challenged, Leng Ying. At this moment, Leng Ying's eyes were flickering with evil flames as he stared at Autumn Moon. Boom! Autumn Moon's aura erupted, wanting to break free from Leng Ying's aura. However, he failed. What is this guy trying to do? Some people were surprised. Miss, you don't have to go down. You can stay in my courtyard. I happen to need a maid, Leng Ying said calmly, his voice sounding like an order. Who wants to be your maid? Dream on. Autumn Moon struggled. You refuse? Leng Ying's eyes flashed and said, You don't have to stay in the smelly place below if you stay here. Moreover, I will guide you in your cultivation when I'm free. This is a great opportunity for you. Do you understand? Leng Ying stared at Autumn Moon. As for Lu Ming, Wu Yu, and Wu Ming, he directly ignored them. Many people looked at Autumn Moon with pity. Leng Ying said it in a dignified manner. In fact, he was only interested in Autumn Moon's beauty and wanted to keep Autumn Moon for himself. However, Autumn Moon was indeed beautiful. The other young men were also tempted. Bam! At this moment, Lu Ming took a step forward and landed in front of Autumn Moon. The ground shook and Leng Ying's aura was defeated. Leng Ying's eyes flashed with killing intent. He finally looked at Lu Ming. Kid, are you trying to be nosy? Leng Ying said coldly. What do you mean by being nosy? She's my woman. You tell me, is this nosy? Lu Ming said calmly. Your woman? Leng Ying's eyes were filled with killing intent when he heard this. He said, It's a waste for such a beauty to fall into your hands. It pisses me off. Then? Lu Ming said calmly. Then I'm going to cripple your eyes. Leng Ying shouted coldly. His body flashed and rushed towards Lu Ming. His 2 fingers were like 2 javelins, piercing towards Lu Ming's eyes. Bang! Lu Ming fully unleashed the god force in his body. At the same time, he activated the battle seal to quadruple his strength. A long spear appeared in Lu Ming's hand silently. The spear shuddered and fired 2 spear glows. Thump! Thump! The spear glows collided with Leng Ying's fingers, resulting in 2 explosions. Lu Ming's figure was knocked a few steps back. However, Leng Ying's figure was knocked back too. What? He blocked it? The others were astounded. Apart from Wu Ming, Wu Yu, and a few others, the others found it hard to believe that Lu Ming was able to block Leng Ying's attack and knock him back. Lu Ming was only a 4th-layer heaven god realm cultivator. Even Leng Ying himself was astonished. He never thought that a 4th-layer heaven god would be able to unleash such shocking power. Chapter 2986. Kid, not bad, but I've only used 20% of my strength. Now I'll show you my true strength, Leng Ying yelled. His aura surged as he circulated his god force, forming a giant eagle around him. Caw! The eagle screeched as Leng Ying pounced at Lu Ming. His sharp claws tore through the air, grabbing at Lu Ming. You're not the only one who hasn't used his full strength, Lu Ming bellowed coldly. Following which, his body swelled rapidly and he transformed into a green-armored ancient god that was a few 100 meters tall. Buzz! His spear vibrated and swept across the mountain, stirring up a strong gust of wind. At the next moment, Leng Ying's claws grabbed Lu Ming's giant spear. Bang! Buzz, buzz, buzz! The eagle claws grabbed the spear, resulting in a loud explosion and an ear-piercing sound of friction, with sparks flying in all directions. The two clashed for a few breaths' time, before the spear shuddered and withdrew. However, Ling Ying's body was knocked a few thousand meters back before he could regain his footing. His claws were placed behind his back, trembling slightly to avoid being seen by others. His eyes were filled with astonishment. Lu Ming's strength had completely exceeded his expectations. Such a terrifying god force! The others were astounded too. Some of the older members, including those who lived on the Star Peak, looked at Lu Ming in astonishment. No one had expected Lu Ming to possess such strength. Ancient god body, it's the ancient god body. I didn't expect him to have cultivated the ancient god body to such an extent. How shocking! What's even more shocking is that he's only a fourth-layer heaven god. Sounds of discussion could be heard all around. They did not expect there to be such a strong genius among the newcomers. I didn't expect there to be a genius like you among the newcomers. You're quite strong. Since you're so strong, I'll let bygones be bygones. You may leave, Ling Ying said. He then waved his hand. Let bygones be bygones. Hee, I didn't say that I didn't care. Lu Ming sneered. Lu Ming had no intention of letting the other party off so easily since he dared to touch his woman. What do you want? Ling Ying's face darkened. I've taken a fancy to your courtyard. Now take your things and scram, Lu Ming said coldly. Lu Ming had been considering who he should challenge, but who would have thought that frigid eagle would take the initiative to challenge him? In that case, he might as well start with him. Brat, don't refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit, Ling Ying shouted coldly, his killing intent cold. I like to drink as a forfeit, so what? If you don't scram, then I'll make you scram. Lu Ming shouted coldly and strode towards Ling Ying. His huge spear pressed down on Ling Ying with the force of Mount Tai. You're courting death! Ling Ying roared furiously. With a long whistle, a huge divine eagle condensed around his body. It carried his body and soared into the sky, charging towards Lu Ming. Boom! The two collided for the second time, and the sky shook violently. Lu Ming's figure shook slightly, but Ling Ying's body retreated quickly. Is this the power of someone who's about to awaken their origin divine force? It's indeed powerful! Lu Ming's mind raced. He felt that Ling Ying's divine force was extremely powerful, and it had almost crushed his own divine force. If he didn't have 10 types of divine force and the support of the battle character art, he wouldn't have been able to withstand it. Again! Lu Ming shouted and continued to attack Ling Ying. Bang! Bang! Lu Ming stepped on the void, and with every step, a 9-clawed dragon would fly out. After 7 steps, 7 9-clawed dragons had formed and pounced on Ling Ying. At the same time, Lu Ming's spear slashed down, using the second move of the 3 strikes of extinction, moon slashing. He used his divine skill and secret technique at the same time, and a terrifying attack rolled toward Ling Ying like a wave. Divine Eagle illuminates the world! Ling Ying let out a long cry. Feathers actually grew out of his skin, causing his divine eagle form to become even more powerful. The two exchanged blows in the void, and in the blink of an eye, they had already exchanged dozens of blows. Ling Ying is about to lose, someone whispered. In the battle between Ling Ying and Lu Ming, Ling Ying had been at a disadvantage from the beginning to the end, and was suppressed by Lu Ming. His defeat was only a matter of time, and it would happen very quickly. Sure enough, Ling Ying managed to exchange dozens of blows with Lu Ming, and was struck by Lu Ming's spear. One of the wings of the divine eagle that he had transformed into collapsed. Ling Ying's face changed drastically, and he spurted out a mouthful of blood. Void piercing, void piercing! Lu Ming took the opportunity to launch a fierce attack, and dozens of terrifying spear radiances attacked Ling Ying. Each of these spear radiances was equivalent to the full power of Lu Ming's void piercing. If it wasn't for the continuous supply of divine force from the quantifying character art, Lu Ming wouldn't have been able to squander it like this. Rumble! After being struck by these spear radiances, Ling Ying's divine eagle completely collapsed, and his body was pierced through by a spear radiance. The spear radiance carried his body and landed on the star peak, nailing him to a rock. Ling Ying didn't die. This was Lu Ming being merciful. Otherwise, this spear would have taken his life. As a newcomer, Lu Ming didn't want to attract too much trouble. Many people were dumbfounded. They didn't expect Ling Ying to be defeated, and so miserably at that. As for the older members, their gazes were grave. Lu Ming had given them a lot of pressure. Lu Ming waved his hand, and the spear radiance on Ling Ying's body disappeared. Ling Ying fell to the ground, coughing up large mouthfuls of blood. His injuries were very serious, and he wouldn't be able to recover without 10 days to half a month. "Now scram!" Lu Ming said indifferently. "Just you wait." Ling Ying spat out these words, and then staggered down the mountain. Now that he had been defeated and chased out of the courtyard, he no longer had the qualifications to fly in this area. He could only walk on his feet. Lu Ming smiled faintly. He stepped into the courtyard and swept his gaze over the place. The courtyard was very big and unique. Lu Ming liked it very much. "Autumn Moon, stay here with me." Lu Ming walked out and said to Autumn Moon. According to the rules, the owner of the courtyard could invite several people to stay together. "Yes, young master." Autumn Moon smiled. The other new members were envious. They envied Lu Ming for being able to stay on the star peak, and not at the foot of the mountain. "Brother Wu Ming, Brother Wu Yu, let's stay together." Lu Ming invited Wu Ming and Wu Yu. The courtyard was very big, and there were many rooms. It wouldn't be a problem for a few more people to stay together. "We don't need it. We want to rely on our own strength in the future." Wu Ming smiled. "That's right. Only by staying below will we have motivation. In fact, our Wu family also has other prodigies staying above, but if they come up directly, they won't have any pressure." Wu Yu said. "That's good too. I'll wait for you up there." Lu Ming smiled, and didn't insist. He knew that Wu Ming and Wu Yu were right. Only by staying below would they have motivation. Chapter 2987. Lu Ming, Wu Ming, and Wu Yu chatted for a while. At this moment, an old man was watching them from afar. He's here, he's finally here. After so many years, he's finally here, ha ha ha." The old man laughed loudly, his body trembling with excitement. After a while, the old man calmed down. Then, his eyes flickered a few times, and he took a step forward, disappearing from the place. "Brother Lu, we'll take our leave then." Wu Yu and Wu Ming cupped their fists, intending to leave. "Kid, it's you!" At this moment, an angry roar was heard. Then, a few people stepped on the air and arrived above Lu Ming's head. A cold aura spread towards Lu Ming. People from the Qin clan, and Jin Xing." Lu Ming looked around and saw a few familiar faces. Among them was Jin Xing, the one who was defeated by Lu Ming in the Qin Tian Star Field. There were a few young men beside Jin Xing. 2 of them had scales between their eyebrows. Lu Ming knew at a glance that they were from the same clan as Qin Wuyo and Qin Wushang. These people could fly in the air, which meant that they also lived on the star peak. However, with Jin Xing's cultivation, it was impossible for him to live on the star peak. He should be living in someone else's garden. The few of them looked coldly at Lu Ming. "Jin Xing, is this the kid who killed my cousin Wuyo?" One of the young men with scales between his eyebrows said coldly. "That's right, it's him. He's the one who killed Qin Wuyo in the Qin Tian Star Field." Jin Xing pointed at Lu Ming. "Very well, how dare you kill someone from the Qin clan? You're courting death." One of the sky prides of the Qin clan said coldly. He took a step forward and landed in front of Lu Ming. His cold aura kept pressuring towards Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming's expression did not change. "Kid, now, I want to challenge you to a battle of life and death," the sky prides of the Qin clan said. "I'm not free, no!" Lu Ming directly refused. This genius of the Qin clan gave him an unfathomable feeling. To be honest, Lu Ming wasn't confident. Since he wasn't confident, why would Lu Ming fight? Not fighting? The Qin clan's heaven's favorite was startled. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. Today, you have to fight even if you don't want to. After he finished speaking, a powerful aura rose from his body. A terrifying pressure covered the sky and the earth, spreading in all directions. Half-step Divine King Realm. Many people's expressions changed drastically. The genius of the Qin clan was a half-step Divine King. Lu Ming's expression stiffened slightly. Lu Ming was not afraid of ordinary half-step Divine Kings. He could easily crush them, such as the 9 great demon masters of the Devil Capital Mountain. However, the person in front of him wasn't an ordinary half-step Divine King. He was a peerless genius who controlled a divine-grade divine force. His battle prowess wasn't something ordinary people could compare to. If he was close to awakening his origin source divine force, his battle prowess would be even more shocking. Even if Lu Ming went all out, he might not be a match for him. However, if they were to fight, Lu Ming wasn't afraid. At most, he would go all out. If they were to fight to the death, Lu Ming could ignite his ancient god heart and definitely kill his opponent. Lu Ming's body also rose with a powerful battle intent. Wait a minute! At this moment, Wu Ming shouted. Do you have something to say? The genius of the Qin clan looked at Wu Ming coldly. I remember that there's a rule in the Starry Camp. If a new member challenges an old member of the Star Peak and takes away the other party's courtyard, they will be protected for 50 years. Within these 50 years, they can reject other people's challenges. Wu Ming said. That's right, there's such a rule. Indeed, this is to protect the new members of the Heavenly Talents. Some people also started to discuss. Although it was difficult for the new members to challenge the old members of the Star Peak, there were still some new members. There would be some terrifying geniuses among the new members who had a chance to succeed. For example, Lu Ming this time. Therefore, there was such a rule to protect the new members. The genius of the Qin clan, Jin Xing, and the rest obviously thought of this, and their faces darkened. Oh? There's such a rule? Then hurry up and get lost. If you want to fight with me, come back after 50 years. Lu Ming waved his hand casually as if he was dismissing a beggar. Damn it! The genius of the Qin clan roared in his heart. He really wanted to slap Lu Ming to death. Unfortunately, he couldn't go against the rules of the Starry Camp. Kid, if you have the guts, accept my challenge. Don't be a coward! The genius of the Qin clan shouted coldly, hoping to provoke Lu Ming into accepting the challenge. However, Lu Ming wouldn't fall for such a low-level provocation. Sure, if you suppress your cultivation to the same level as mine, I'll accept your challenge, Lu Ming said with a smile. The genius of the Qin clan fell silent. What a joke. Suppress his cultivation to the same level as Lu Ming? Didn't you see how Lu Ming defeated Ling Ying when he was only a 4th-level heaven god? Suppressing his cultivation to the same level as Lu Ming was simply courting death. Why? Do you dare? If you don't talk nonsense here. How can you be considered a genius if you only know how to suppress others with your cultivation? You're more like a piece of trash, Lu Ming said coldly. You! The genius of the Qin clan almost vomited blood. He couldn't insult Lu Ming and was the one being insulted instead. What about me? If you don't dare, hurry up and get lost. Don't disturb my cultivation, Lu Ming said in disdain. Lu Ming, how dare you? Right at this moment, Jin Xing roared. Lu Ming looked at Jin Xing in surprise. Lu Ming, you're from the Qin Tian Star Field. The people from the Qin Tian Star Field have stolen the treasure of the 9 Extinction Heavenly King Mansion, the 9 Extinction Divine Crystal. You're now a criminal. Why did you come to the Starry Camp? Do you have any ulterior motives? Jin Xing shouted with a cunning look in his eyes. The people from the Qin Tian Star Field. I didn't expect him to be from the Qin Tian Star Field. The people from the Qin Tian Star Field are indeed a criminal. Many people looked at Lu Ming unkindly when they heard that Lu Ming was from the Qin Tian Star Field. The 9 Extinction Heavenly King Mansion's treasure had been stolen and the target was the Qin Tian Star Field. Although the Qin Tian Star Field had been given 1,000 years' time, the people from the Qin Tian star field were still suspects. Lu Ming, you must have some ulterior motives to secretly join the starry camp. Tell me, are you the one who stole the treasure of the 9 extinction Heavenly King Mansion? Jin Xing shouted coldly and put a big hat on Lu Ming. You're talking nonsense. Do you think I can steal the treasure from the 9 extinction Heavenly King Mansion with my cultivation? Lu Ming's face was calm as he replied indifferently. That's easy. There must be someone in the 9 extinction Heavenly King Mansion. Jin Xing's gaze turned and fell on Wu Ming and Wu Yu. He sneered and said, I suspect that the Wu family is your spy who helped you steal the 9 extinction divine crystal. Wu Ming and Wu Yu's faces changed drastically after hearing this. Jin Xing's words were malicious. He was trying to kill the Wu family. Jin Xing, you're talking nonsense. You need evidence to prove your words. If you're so capable, why don't you show us the evidence? Wu Ming and Wu Yu shouted. Chapter 2988. Jin Xing actually accused Lu Ming of colluding with the Wu family to steal the 9 Ju divine crystal. This was a serious crime. Wu Yu and Wu Ming immediately shouted, asking Jin Xing to take out the evidence if he had the ability. Why do we need evidence? The truth is right in front of us. Why do we need evidence? Jin Xing sneered and continued to accuse. Hee, you want to convict me with just your mouth? How laughable is that? Lu Ming said and looked at Jin Xing with disdain. He smiled evilly and said, Since you insist that I stole the treasure, then fine. I admit that it was the Jin family and Qin family who ordered me to do it. The Jin family and Qin family want to rebel. As soon as he said that, the faces of the Jin family and Qin family changed. Bullshit, you're bullshitting. Nonsense. No one will believe a single word you say. Jin Xing and Qin Tian's geniuses roared. Oh? If you can say it, why can't I say it? Since you said that I'm suspected of stealing the treasure, then I'll expose you guys for colluding with me. What's suspicious about that? That's normal. Otherwise, how could I steal the treasure? Lu Ming said indifferently. You! Lu Ming, damn it! Jin Xing roared, but he couldn't find any words to refute Lu Ming. If he continued to accuse Lu Ming of coming to the starry camp with bad intentions and having something to do with the theft of the 9 Ju divine crystal, then Lu Ming would insist that the Jin family and Qin Tian were their helpers. Since there was no evidence, he could just rely on his mouth. Jin Xing's face turned green and white. In the end, he didn't dare to say anything. The 9 Ju Heavenly King Mansion wasn't just one family, but many ancient families. These families worked together under the 9 Ju Heavenly King Mansion, but they were competitors and attacked each other. He was afraid that if he continued to suppress Lu Ming would say anything. It wouldn't be good if the rival families attacked them. Lu Ming, then you can continue to hide. Let's see how long you can hide. The protection period here is only 50 years. Jin Xing snorted coldly. You talk too much. Come, let's fight at the same level. If you don't fight, then you're a bastard. Lu Ming gestured with his middle finger. Humph. The geniuses of the Jin clan and Qin clan snorted coldly and turned to leave. Brother Lu, you still have to be careful in the future. The Jin family and Qin family have great influence in the 9 extinction Heavenly King Mansion. Wu Ming warned. Don't worry. Lu Ming smiled. Then, Wu Ming and Wu Yu bid farewell and left. Lu Ming and Qiu Yu walked into the courtyard and closed the door. The courtyard was very large. There was a courtyard, a pavilion, and 7 or 8 rooms. The two of them each chose a room. Lu Ming walked into the room and sat down cross-legged. He could feel a strange fluctuation coming from the top of the star peak. This wave of energy could clear one's mind and speed up one's comprehension of divine skills and secret techniques. However, Lu Ming was not in the mood to comprehend the divine skills and secret techniques. He was thinking about the origin divine force factor. There should be a place to store books in the starry camp. There should also be a place to buy divine skills and secret techniques. Let's go and take a look. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He then stood up and left the room. He soared into the sky and observed from afar. On the star peak, other than many residences, there were also many majestic palaces. From afar, Lu Ming saw a palace with people going in and out. It was very lively. Lu Ming flew towards that palace. When he arrived, he realized that it was a market with people coming and going. It was very lively. Immediately, Lu Ming bought a map of the starry camp. On the map, some of the important places in the starry camp were marked out. There is indeed a scripture depository. Let's go and take a look. Lu Ming followed the mark on the map and flew over. Soon, Lu Ming saw a majestic palace. Above the door, there were 3 big words, Scripture Depository. At the door, there was a white-haired old man guarding it. You can stay on the first floor and read freely. You can only buy anything from the second floor and above, the old man said calmly. Thank you, Senior. Lu Ming cupped his fists and walked in. The first floor was extremely spacious. At a glance, it was filled with books and classics. Lu Ming casually flipped through the books. He realized that the first floor wasn't filled with secret manuals of divine techniques or secret manuals of divine skills. Instead, it was filled with miscellaneous books. For example, there were books that recorded various desolate beasts, various strange stories, introductions to the local customs of different star regions, the history of the Taishu dynasty, etc. No wonder he could casually flip through the books. Lu Ming took a glance. Divine Power Biography! Suddenly, a book attracted Lu Ming's attention. Lu Ming immediately flipped through the book. The first part introduced the basic knowledge of divine power. Lu Ming knew all about it and skipped it. At the back, it introduced the origin divine power factor. Most of it was similar to what Wu Ming and Wu Yu said. However, it was more detailed in this part. For divine grade divine power, as one's comprehension and usage deepened, one would be able to awaken the origin divine power factor. However, before the origin divine power factor was awakened, there was a process called the awakening level. For example, Ling Ying and the others who lived on the mountainside of the Star Peak had entered this level and were not far from the awakening level. Of course, there was a difference between not far and not far. For some people, the awakening level was 10%, while for others, it was 20%. Only when the awakening level reached 100% would the origin divine power factor be truly awakened. The higher the awakening level, the stronger the divine power would be. I wonder what's Ling Ying's awakening level? According to this record, it should be less than 50%. Lu Ming pondered. Then, he thought of himself. He was afraid that he hadn't even awakened 10% of the sovereign's divine power. As for the undying sword force, it was even worse. Seems like I have to spend more time on divine power in the future. Lu Ming pondered and continued reading. The more he read, the more Lu Ming sighed. It turned out that the awakening of the origin divine power was just the beginning. It was only the awakening of the origin divine power factor. It was still far from the divine power that the primitive divine spirits had during the incipient God era. The origin divine power factor that he had just awakened was only the first level. In the future, it could be awakened a second time, a third time. After the second awakening, it would be the second level of the origin divine power factor. After the third awakening, it would be the third level of the origin divine power factor. Every time he awakened, it was extremely difficult, and only 1 in a million could awaken. Every time he awakened, his divine power would transform and become even stronger. It could even give birth to secret techniques of the origin. Every time the origin secret art was awakened, it was possible that the origin secret art would be different, and its prowess would be greater than that of ordinary origin secret arts. No one knew how many times the origin divine power factor could be awakened. According to the legends, the highest number of awakenings was 9 times. At that time, the divine power would have transformed to an extremely terrifying level. It was absolutely equal to the true origin divine power with endless power. However, those who could reach that level were the real peak existences in the primitive universe. They were the characters who could move unhindered in the universe. One kind of divine power has so many mysteries. Its potential is endless, Lu Ming exclaimed. Chapter 2989. Looking at the introduction of the origin God force factor, Lu Ming was even more determined to focus on cultivating divine grade God force, merging the king grade God force and divine grade God force in his body. Let's go up a few floors and see if there are any divine grade God force techniques that are similar to my saint grade God force and king grade God force attributes, Lu Ming muttered to himself. He left the first floor and walked up the stairs to the second floor. The second floor was filled with divine skills secret manuals. However, there were restrictions placed on each divine skills secret manual. Lu Ming picked one up and flipped through it. He realized that he could only flip through the first 2 pages, which contained a simple introduction of the divine skill. As for the rest of the divine skills secret manual, he couldn't flip through it. If he wanted to read the rest of the divine skills secret manual, he could only buy it and ask the expert guarding the place to open the restrictions for him. Let's see if I can find a suitable divine skills secret manual. Lu Ming's heart suddenly moved. The 9 heavens Garuda art that he cultivated was incomplete. The highest level he could reach was the 7th level. Now, he had cultivated it to the peak. Now, he wanted to find a divine skills secret manual that he could cultivate to a higher level. As for the offensive and defensive divine techniques, there were a total of 9 levels of the apocalyptic 3 strikes and the 9-layered crimson gold armor. It was enough for Lu Ming to cultivate for a period of time. Ordinary cultivators would only be able to cultivate to the 9th level after reaching the God King realm. Thus, it wasn't easy to cultivate to the 9th level. These 2 divine skills secret manuals didn't need to be changed for the time being. Lu Ming walked around the second floor, his gaze sweeping through the divine skills secret manual. Not long after, Lu Ming's eyes lit up. 9 heavens Garuda art, there is actually the 9 heavens Garuda art here. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He actually saw a divine skills secret manual, the 9 heavens Garuda art. Lu Ming quickly picked it up and flipped through it. Of course, he could only flip through the first 2 pages, which was the introduction of the 9 heavens Garuda art. 13th level, this is the complete 9 heavens Garuda art. It can be cultivated to the 13th level. Lu Ming was overjoyed. Needless to say, Lu Ming would definitely buy this 9 heavens Kunping technique. If he were to purchase other speed-type divine skills, Lu Ming would have to start from the first level again. However, if he were to cultivate the Garuda art, Lu Ming could directly start from the 7th level. Lu Ming put away the 9 heavens Garuda technique manual with satisfaction, and then he walked towards the 3rd floor. The 3rd floor was filled with all kinds of divine arts. Moreover, they were all divine grade divine arts. When cultivated to the peak, one would be able to cultivate divine grade divine power. There were over 100 of them. Lu Ming's eyes burned with passion. There were more than 100 kinds of divine grade techniques, and each of them could cultivate a different kind of divine grade divine power. Lu Ming's heart was thumping wildly at the thought of it. He had the universe myriad Tao arts, so he could cultivate a lot of divine powers. If he could successfully cultivate so many divine arts, then wouldn't he be able to control hundreds of divine grade divine powers? Lu Ming's eyes were filled with greed. Calm down, calm down. Lu Ming took a deep breath and calmed himself down. If it was in the past, he would have really wanted to cultivate so many divine grade divine powers. However, he had changed his mind. Every type of divine grade divine power had endless potential and could continuously awaken the origin divine power factor. Therefore, although he could cultivate many types of divine powers, he did not have the energy to awaken the origin divine power factor. Therefore, he did not plan to cultivate too many types for the time being. He only wanted to cultivate divine powers that were similar to the divine grade and royal grade divine powers in his body. When he had the chance in the future, he would cultivate more divine powers. After calming down, Lu Ming began to search. Currently, he had a total of 10 types of divine powers in his body. There were 3 royal grade divine powers, the frost divine power from the cold ice divine art, the great sun divine power from the great sun divine art, and the golden dragon divine art from the golden dragon divine art. There were also 5 divine grade divine powers: the extreme cold divine art from the extreme cold divine art, the profound divine art from the profound divine art, the multi-eyed divine art from the multi-eyed divine art, the heavenly wind divine art from the heavenly wind divine art, and the 9 evils divine art from the 9 evils divine art. The last 2 were divine grade divine powers, the sovereign divine power, and the inextinguishable sword force. Among these divine powers, the frost divine power and the extreme cold divine power had similar attributes. As long as he could find a divine grade cultivation technique with the cold attribute, and cultivate it successfully, he would be able to merge them. As for the royal grade and saint grade divine powers, he would have to find a similar divine grade cultivation technique to cultivate. Lu Ming searched carefully. Not long after, Lu Ming found 2 techniques that satisfied Lu Ming. The great moon divine art, when cultivated to the peak, would allow one to cultivate the great moon divine power with the cold attribute. If one could awaken the origin divine power, it would be even more terrifying. This was an extremely ancient divine power. The great sun divine art, when cultivated to the peak, would allow one to cultivate the great sun divine power with the yang attribute. This was also an extremely ancient divine power that corresponded to the great moon divine power. These are the 2 techniques. Lu Ming smiled faintly. He put away the 2 divine techniques and continued his search. Not long after, Lu Ming found a few more techniques. The Wind Annihilation Divine Art's Wind Annihilation Divine Art was a divine grade divine power, which corresponded to the Heavenly Wind Divine Power. The Heavenly Evil Divine Art's Heavenly Evil Divine Power was also a divine grade divine power, which corresponded to the 9 Evils Divine Power. The Profound Sky Divine Art's Profound Sky Divine Art was also a divine grade divine power, which corresponded to the Profound Sky Divine Power. However, it was a pity that Lu Ming could not find a divine grade cultivation technique that corresponded to the Golden Dragon Divine Power and the Multi-Vision Divine Art. I'll buy these 5 techniques first. I'll think of a way to get the other 2 later. Lu Ming pondered for a while. After putting away these magical skills, he headed to the first floor. He arrived at the entrance. What do you want to buy? Let this old man first remind you that the things inside have restrictions. If I don't remove the restrictions, you won't be able to bring them out. The old man reminded him. Junior understands. Junior wants to buy these. Lu Ming took out the 9 Heavens Kunping technique and the 5 divine grade techniques. You want to buy so many divine grade cultivation techniques? Little brat, 1 person is enough, don't you understand? The old man's eyes widened as he looked at Lu Ming in surprise. Senior has misunderstood. Junior is not buying for himself. Junior comes from a small place that lacks divine grade cultivation techniques. Junior is buying them for his friends. Lu Ming casually came up with an excuse. I see. The old man nodded, not suspecting anything. It was normal to buy for one's friends and family. However, the price of a divine grade cultivation technique is very high. 1 manual is. The old man then reported the total price of the 5 divine grade cultivation techniques and the 9 Heavens Garuda art. After hearing the price, Lu Ming sucked in a breath of cold air. 100,000 high-grade divine crystals. The total price was 100,000 high-grade divine crystals. High-grade divine crystals were used by God King realm experts to cultivate. Chapter 2990. 100,000 high-grade divine crystals were equivalent to 10 billion mid-grade divine crystals. As for how many low-grade divine crystals were equivalent to, it was practically impossible to calculate. It was an astronomical figure. Lu Ming was stunned when he heard this number. The old man also looked at Lu Ming with a smile. Even a low-level divine king would not be able to pay such a price. He concluded that Lu Ming definitely could not take out so many divine crystals. Sigh, what a pity! I can't buy the first level directly. Lu Ming sighed in his heart. Actually, he only needed to buy the first level of these divine techniques. However, there was a rule here. If he wanted to buy, he could only buy the entire set. After sighing for a while, Lu Ming took out several storage rings and fiddled with them. Then, he handed a storage ring to the old man. Senior, the low-grade divine crystals, mid-grade divine crystals, and high-grade divine crystals in here add up to 100,000 high-grade divine crystals, Lu Ming said. You really have so many divine crystals? The old man was skeptical. Then, he took Lu Ming's storage ring and scanned it with his spiritual sense. He was immediately stunned. The space within the storage ring was filled with divine crystals. There were mountains of low-grade divine crystals and mid-grade divine crystals. There was also a portion of high-grade divine crystals. An ordinary person would not have been able to count them. However, with the old man's powerful spiritual sense, he could count them clearly in a few breaths. These divine crystals added up to 100,000 high-grade divine crystals. Kid, you're incredible. You really can take out 100,000 high-grade divine crystals. The old man sighed in amazement. Lu Ming lamented in his heart. If he had not killed the Dark Night Demon King and obtained his storage ring, he would not have been able to take out so many divine crystals. After all, the Dark Night Demon King had so many divine crystals because he was sitting on the demonic night spring. Even so, after paying such a sum of divine crystals, Lu Ming did not have many left. Since you've paid the divine crystals, these divine techniques are yours. I'll remove the seals on them for you, the old man said. Then, he formed hand seals with both hands. Runes flew into the manual. The manual flickered a few times before stabilizing. All right, the restriction on it has been broken. Take it, the old man said. Thank you, Senior. Lu Ming cupped his fists. Then, he took the secret book and put it into his storage ring. After that, he hurriedly returned to his residence. Mid-Autumn Moon. After returning to his residence, Lu Ming walked into Autumn Moon's room. Young master, what's wrong? Autumn Moon ended her cultivation and blinked her eyes at Lu Ming. Chiu Yu, how's your cultivation of the saint-grade divine techniques that I gave you before? Lu Ming asked. They've all succeeded. They've already condensed divine flames, Autumn Moon said. So fast. Lu Ming was speechless. Fortunately, the divine techniques that Autumn Moon cultivated were the same as Lu Ming's. Autumn Moon, I've bought some divine-grade divine arts. Take 2 of them and cultivate them first. After you've successfully cultivated them, integrate the saint-grade divine power with the divine-grade divine power. Lu Ming took out a few divine-grade divine arts and gave them to Autumn Moon. Divine-grade divine arts! Autumn Moon's eyes lit up. Then, she took 2 of them. Then, Lu Ming returned to his room and took out a divine art, serene divine art, and began to read it. It was indeed difficult to cultivate a divine-grade divine art. However, Lu Ming already had a lot of experience. In addition, his comprehension had increased a lot on the star peak. Thus, it wasn't too difficult for him to cultivate it. A few months later, Lu Ming cultivated the first level of the serene divine art, and successfully cultivated a strand of serene divine power. Then, Lu Ming changed to the universe myriad Tao technique. He continued to strengthen this strand of serene divine power until he condensed divine flames. Just like that, a year passed. When the divine power was strong enough, Lu Ming's energy center lit up another divine flame. This was the serene divine flame. This was also because the cultivation environment in the starry camp was too good. In other places, it wouldn't be so fast. Now I can integrate the ice divine power and absolute chill divine power into the serene divine power. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. He began to control the 2 divine flames and merge them with the serene divine flame. Their attributes were similar, and the serene divine flame was of a higher grade. It was relatively easy to merge them. A few months later, the ice divine power and absolute chill divine power had completely merged with the serene divine flame. The serene divine flame had grown a lot stronger. However, compared to the divine flames formed by the sovereign divine power and the indestructible sword force, it was still a long way off. It needed time to grow stronger. In this way, Lu Ming only had 9 divine flames left in his energy center. I wonder how Autumn Moon's cultivation is going. Let's go take a look. Lu Ming walked out of his room and saw Autumn Moon cultivating a divine art in the courtyard. When he saw Lu Ming, Autumn Moon stopped cultivating. Autumn Moon, how's your cultivation of the 2 divine grade divine arts going? Lu Ming asked with a smile. I finished cultivating them a few months ago, Autumn Moon said. What? You finished cultivating them? You finished fusing the divine flames? Lu Ming was shocked. Yes, I finished them, Autumn Moon said. Aye. Lu Ming received a huge blow. He had been cultivating non-stop and had only managed to cultivate 1. However, Autumn Moon had already cultivated 2. This was really a blow to him. Autumn Moon, take these and cultivate. Lu Ming gave the remaining 3 divine arts to Autumn Moon. Autumn Moon returned the 2 to Lu Ming. The 2 chatted for a while before returning to their respective rooms to continue cultivating. Time passed quickly. Lu Ming had been in the starry camp for 10 years. During this time, Lu Ming had successfully cultivated all the divine grade divine arts and fused them with the divine powers of similar attributes. Now, Lu Ming only had 9 divine flames and 9 divine powers left in his energy center. 7 of them were divine grade divine powers. They were the ruler divine powers, undying sword force, sun divine powers, moon divine powers, profound heaven divine powers, wind destruction divine powers, and heavenly evil divine powers. There was also a saint grade divine powers, multi-vision divine powers, and a king grade divine powers, golden dragon divine powers. Of the 7 divine grade divine powers, only the ruler divine powers and undying sword force were full. They were at 4th layer heavenly god realm. The other 5 divine grade divine powers were only at 1st layer heavenly god realm. They were still far from being full. Although the saint grade divine powers and king grade divine powers were full before they were fused, they were far from being full once they were converted into divine grade divine powers. Even so, Lu Ming's overall battle strength had increased by a notch. After all, they were all divine grade divine powers. Each of them was shockingly powerful. If all the divine powers were full, Lu Ming's battle strength would skyrocket. At that time, even if his cultivation did not increase, he would be able to crush geniuses like Ling Ying. That being said, it was extremely difficult to cultivate all 5 divine grade divine powers to full. For example, it would take a long time for a person to reach 4th layer heavenly god realm from 1st layer heavenly god realm. Besides, Lu Ming was equivalent to 5 people. Chapter 2991. The Universe Myriad Dao's technique has its pros and cons. He can control many kinds of divine grade divine force and is indeed powerful, but the resources and time required for cultivation are much more than others. Unfortunately, the refinement speed of the stellar core is too slow. If there is energy from the stellar core, I can quickly cultivate all 5 kinds of divine grade divine force to the fullest state, Lu Ming muttered. Hey kid, are you blaming me for the slow refinement speed? Lu Ming's words were heard by the quantifying formula, and it immediately shouted. No! Lu Ming quickly denied. Kid, it's all because your cultivation is too weak. Too weak, do you understand? It's simply too weak. Heavenly God realm, hee hee. The quantifying formula sneered with great resentment. Lu Ming's face was covered in cold sweat. The quantifying formula muttered again, scolding Lu Ming. After a long while, it stopped. Kid, let me tell you, it's not impossible to quickly refine the energy of the stellar core. After scolding, the quantifying formula suddenly changed the topic. What's the way? Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Without the help of the stellar core, Lu Ming could cultivate all 5 kinds of divine force to the fullest state without the help of the stellar core. It would take him at least tens of thousands of years to cultivate all 5 kinds of divine force to the fullest state even on the star peak. Tens of thousands of years, by that time, it would be too late. It's very simple. The stellar core is extreme yang. If you can find a kind of extreme yin and cold object for me to absorb and merge with the yin and yang, I can quickly refine the stellar core into energy. The quantifying formula said. Extreme yin and cold? Does the cold moonstone count? Lu Ming said. No, the cold moonstone's level is too low. The cold liquid in your 9th ice chain can do it. The quantifying formula said. That liquid? Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. However, he had already refined it and turned it into a supernatural power. It would definitely not work. Then, Lu Ming thought of the Ice Soul Race's treasure, the Ice Jade Heart Chill. However, the Ice Jade Heart was the most precious treasure of the Ice Soul clan. It was impossible for him to refine and absorb it. Let's go to the Starry Sky Camp Market and take a look, Lu Ming muttered before leaving the room and heading towards the market square of the Universal Camp. Unfortunately, in the market of the Starry Sky Camp, although some cold attribute treasures were found, they did not meet the requirements. One had to know that it was the core of a star. It was very difficult to find an item of extreme coldness that matched it. For the next few days, Lu Ming went in and out of the market square. Unfortunately, there was no harvest. Lu Ming could only rely on himself to slowly cultivate. Lu Ming cultivated the Universe Myriad Dao technique, accumulating divine power while cultivating various divine skills. He realized that the complete version of the Nine Heavens Kunping technique was even more mysterious than the incomplete version. Especially after the 7th level, it was simply a lot more mysterious. After cultivating it, he would truly have the might of the Kunping, able to fly for 100,000 miles with the flap of his wings. Lu Ming, get your ass out here and fight me! On this day, Lu Ming was cultivating. Suddenly, a loud roar came from outside. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. He extended his spiritual awareness and found a young man standing in midair. His eyes were like lightning. Lu Ming had never seen this young man before. It seems like the Jin clan and Qin clan can't hold back anymore. Lu Ming thought for a while before saying, "It hasn't been 50 years yet. I won't fight." Lu Ming rejected without hesitation. "Humph, Lu Ming, what kind of supreme talent are you? You only know how to hide like a turtle. You don't even dare to accept a challenge. I think you should get out of the Starry Sky Camp." The young man shouted coldly, full of disdain. "Is that so? Fine, suppress your cultivation to the same level as mine and I will fight you." Lu Ming's voice sounded. "Humph." The young man snorted and did not reply. "Why aren't you talking? You don't even dare to accept a challenge from someone of the same level. What kind of supreme talent are you? You only know how to hide like a turtle. I think you should get out of the Starry Sky Camp." Lu Ming's disdainful voice sounded. "You!" The young man was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Lu Ming returned his words to him. In the end, the young man could only leave with his tail between his legs. However, in less than a month, another young man came to challenge Lu Ming. He used all kinds of provocations and slanderous words. However, Lu Ming always said, "Do you dare to accept a challenge from someone of the same level?" Then those people left with their tails between their legs. Are these people really sent by the Jin clan and Qin clan? After being challenged continuously, Lu Ming had some doubts. If it was the Jin clan and Qin clan, it would be enough to challenge him once or twice. However, this was already 4 or 5 times. Lu Ming could not help but think of the assassination attempt on his way to the Starry Sky Camp. Who was the one who sent them? Also, wasn't the 9 Extinction Heavenly King residence behind the Demon Capital Mountain? How could they be eliminated by the Starry Sky Camp as a test for the newcomers? Could it be that the person who gave the test to the newcomers was the backer of the Demon Capital Mountain? The other party wanted to eliminate the Demon Capital Mountain and destroy the evidence? This was very possible. If that was the case, the Dark Knight Devil King would definitely have evidence in his hands. Therefore, Lu Ming was assassinated on his way to the Starry Sky Camp. Among the people who challenged him, there might be someone sent by the other party who wanted to kill him and take away the evidence in his hands? The more Lu Ming thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. However, it was impossible to investigate from the person who gave the test to the newcomers. Lu Ming had already asked Wu Ming and Wu Yu about this. The person who gave the test was an ordinary elder of the Starry Sky Camp. It was obvious that the other party would not give the order personally. It would be very difficult to investigate through special means. Lu Ming moved his hand and the Dark Night Devil King's storage ring appeared in his hand. If there was evidence, it would definitely be in the storage ring. However, Lu Ming looked through it a few times and found nothing. "Let's look at it again." Lu Ming continued to look through it, but he still found nothing. Clang! 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 At this moment, the sound of a bell could be heard from the Star Peak. What happened? Lu Ming was curious and walked out of the room with Autumn Moon. Star Crescent Ancient City will open in 10 days. Those who want to enter and try their luck, gather at the plaza at the foot of the mountain in 10 days. A voice came from the top of the Star Peak and spread throughout the Starry Sky Camp. Everyone could hear it. Star Crescent Ancient City is opening again. This time, I must go in. I must awaken the Origin God Force Factor. Haha, this is my opportunity. Instantly, the Starry Sky Camp became noisy. Many of the senior members were excited. Star Crescent Ancient City? What is that? Is it a historical site? Lu Ming and Autumn Moon were puzzled. Let's ask Wu Ming and Wu Yu, Autumn Moon said. All right. Lu Ming nodded. Then, he and Autumn Moon flew towards the foot of the mountain. Soon, the two of them arrived at the foot of the mountain. A disgusting smell could be smelled. At this moment, the members of the Starry Sky Camp at the foot of the mountain had left their wooden houses and were discussing the Star Crescent Ancient City. When they saw Lu Ming and Autumn Moon, they all looked at them with envy. Chapter 2992. One day, I'll kill my way up there and fly openly. Me too. Many people clenched their fists and looked at Lu Ming enviously. Living on the Star Peak without any stench and being able to fly freely had become the goal of these people. Lu Ming ignored them. Soon, they found Wu Ming and Wu Yu. Brother Lu, Miss Autumn Moon, why are you here? Wu Ming and Wu Yu said with a smile. After not seeing each other for more than 10 years, Wu Ming and Wu Yu's cultivation had improved significantly. They were not far from reaching the 9th layer Heaven God realm. Brother Wu, I'm here to ask you about the Star Crescent Ancient City, Lu Ming said with a smile. I see, it's because of the Star Crescent Ancient City. We don't know much about it, but we do know that the Star Crescent Ancient City is an ancient ruin. Legend has it that it was left behind from the early days of the Heavenly Palace era. It contains all kinds of fortunate encounters. It's said that every time someone goes there, they will find something there. Someone even managed to awaken the Origin God Force Factor, Wu Ming explained. His eyes flickered passionately as he spoke. An ancient ruin from the early days of the Heavenly Palace era. Lu Ming was shocked too. Now, it was considered the late days of the Heavenly Palace era. It was unknown how long it had been since the early days of the Heavenly Palace era. I heard that there are all kinds of forbidden areas there that contain treasures, Wu Yu added. Oh, did anyone find any frost-type treasures there? Lu Ming asked. Yes, I heard that there's a forbidden area there that contains frost-type treasures, Wu Yu said. Lu Ming's eyes flickered slightly. If he could find some frost-type treasures in the Star Crescent Ancient City, it would greatly increase his cultivation speed. He must go to the Star Crescent Ancient City. Cultivating step by step was too slow. He could only improve faster by going on adventures. After chatting with Wu Ming and Wu Yu for a while, Lu Ming and Autumn Moon returned to their residence. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. 10 days later, the square at the foot of the mountain was crowded with people. Most of the prodigies of the Starry Camp had arrived. Of course, there was a limit to entering the Star Crescent Ancient City. Those above the Divine King realm were not allowed to enter. The highest level that could enter was a half-step Divine King realm. Lu Ming! Wu Ming and Wu Yu walked towards Lu Ming and Autumn Moon. Beside them were a few young men and women, all of whom had extraordinary auras. Wu Ming introduced the young men and women. They were all geniuses of the Wu clan. They cultivated on the Star Peak, and their cultivation bases were below the Divine King realm. They greeted each other and got to know each other. "He's here!" Suddenly, someone spoke and looked in the direction of the Star Peak. A ray of light flew over from the top of the starry peak. It was a white-haired old man who stood in the air above the square. His body exuded a vast and unfathomable aura. It was hard to tell what cultivation level he was at. "My name is Bailey, you can call me Elder Bai," the white-haired old man said. "Greetings, Elder Bai." Many people bowed. The experts in charge of the starry camp were all sent by the Nine Extinction Heavenly King Palace. They were the direct descendants of the Nine Extinction Heavenly King, and did not belong to any of the clans. "You're all going to enter the Starry Crescent Ancient City, right? First of all, let me remind you that it's very dangerous to enter the Starry Crescent Ancient City. You can lose your life at any time. You'd better think carefully," Bailey warned seriously. However, no one said a word. Of course, there would be danger when taking risks and looking for opportunities. If they did not dare to go when there was danger, then what was the point of cultivating? They would definitely be left behind by the other geniuses. Bailey was expressionless as he continued. "Most importantly, those who will enter the Starry Crescent Ancient City will not only be the geniuses of the Nine Extinction Heavenly King Palace, but also the geniuses of the other Heavenly King Palaces. There are a total of 4 Heavenly King Palaces that have the path to the Starry Crescent Ancient City. They will also enter." As soon as he said that, many of the new members were shocked. However, the old members seemed to have known about it, and were not surprised. "The other Heavenly King Palaces will also enter," many people whispered, and their eyes became serious. In the Taishu dynasty, there were a total of 27 Heavenly Kings guarding the various territories. Each Heavenly King Palace was like a country within a country, managing a large area of territory. These Heavenly Kings' palaces did not get along well with each other. Instead, they competed with each other, and even attacked each other as if they were 2 different countries. Some of the Heavenly Kings' palaces even had irreconcilable enmity with each other, and would kill each other whenever they met. Therefore, if the geniuses of the other Heavenly Kings' palaces entered the Starry Crescent Ancient City, the danger would greatly increase. "Alright, that's all for now. Is there anyone else who wants to withdraw?" "It's not too late to withdraw now," Bailey said. No one withdrew. "Alright, since no one wants to withdraw, then follow me. I'll allow you to fly," Bailey said, and then flew out of the Starry Crescent camp. Everyone rose into the air and followed Bailey. After flying for half an hour, they arrived at a secret place. The space there was very strange. It seemed to be shrinking in one direction, and in that direction, there was a dark hole. "Could that be a wormhole?" Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. Lu Ming had seen records of wormholes in some ancient books. Most wormholes appeared naturally after the birth of the universe. Wormholes were extremely mysterious. Different wormholes in the universe would connect with each other. After entering a wormhole, one would appear in another place in the universe. Perhaps, in an instant, one would be transported from one starfield to another. Wormholes were different from teleportation portals. Teleportation portals were man-made. When teleporting, it was actually crossing the void, just like a void passage. It also needed time. For example, inter-starfield teleportation would take a lot of time. However, wormholes did not need that time. In an instant, one could go from one starfield to another starfield or even further away. Could it be that one had to go through this wormhole to enter the Starry Crescent Ancient City? "Let's go!" Bailey took the lead and flew into the wormhole. In a flash, his figure disappeared. Then, the old members followed and flew into the wormhole. "Let's go too!" a young man from the Wu family said, and flew forward. Lu Ming, Chiu Yu, and the rest also entered the wormhole. As soon as Lu Ming entered the wormhole, he was enveloped by a mysterious force. He seemed to see a passage in the void that led to the front. Then, his figure flashed and completely disappeared. In the next moment, his body became lighter and the force disappeared. This is. Lu Ming realized that he was standing on a piece of land. When he looked back, there was also a wormhole behind them. This wormhole was connected to the wormhole in the Starry Crescent camp. If they wanted to go back, they could directly enter this wormhole and return to the Starry Crescent camp. Then, Lu Ming looked around. They were standing on a very flat piece of land. In front of them, there was a majestic ancient city that stood between heaven and earth. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.